A lot of them wanted to do it for Garrett Green and some of the other older players. He goes for 328, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, runs for 95 yards and a touchdown. Exciting game to continue bowl season.
A really exciting game and pretty cool at the end of the half, too. You got back and forth swings. I mean, 2 scores in the final 2 minutes. It was just an entertaining game. I mean, that's what bowl games should be, right? It should be for that. I mean, C.J. Donaldson plays, Garrett Green plays. There's no coach. Neil Brown, their head coach, has been let go. Rich Rod's coming in, but you play for your school. You play for the one guy next to you. You put in a lot of work. You get one last chance at this thing, and there's no guarantees that C.J. Donaldson plays 10 years in the NFL or Garrett Green plays in the NFL. There's no guarantees of that. Last night could have been their last meaningful game in their career. You never know. You hope it's not, but it could be. So it's always fun to watch those games when the teams are both into it, and Memphis caps off a pretty tremendous season. Really had no business losing to Navy earlier in the year, but really kind of unfortunate that they weren't in the mix as a potential G5 playoff contender.
Had that opportunity. Obviously, got that win against Florida State earlier in the season. We know what Florida State turned into, but still 11-2 for Memphis, second most wins in a single season in program history. Mario Anderson runs for 70 yards last night. Rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown, 21 touchdowns from scrimmage. That's the third most in school history at Memphis. So the South Carolina transfer ends up having a nice year for the Tigers. West Virginia outrushed Memphis last night, 206-180. 4th straight bowl win for Memphis. And you had a couple big performances from wide receivers. Demir Blackamoose goes 4 for 120 and a touchdown. Hudson Clement for West Virginia, 11 catches, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns. So some, like I said, some fireworks in this game, but West Virginia turned it over twice, and ultimately they weren't going to be able to overcome that.
Yeah, and I look at West Virginia too. It's a little bit one of those situations like, what the heck? Why did they struggle as bad as they did this year? In a league that got easier, they'd been a consistent team, and there you have a situation where they really never put 4 quarters together. I mean, they had lots of mistakes. They had lots of miscues. They had a clear and established identity with a lot of veteran leadership coming back, and never mattered. I mean, they could never really put it together. Them and Kansas are the 2 teams in the Big 12 that I just have the toughest time wrapping my head around why they were as inconsistent as they were. And I'm not sure we'll ever know the answer to that, but it's certainly a little frustrating now to see a season end the way it did, under 500, when there was some promise at times throughout the year.
Absolutely. And you just think about Rich Rod taking over that West Virginia program. It's hard to say what kind of situation he'll be stepping into because you don't know who's going to be on the roster, but does this give you a little bit more hope that he could potentially have things heading the right way a little bit earlier?
I think he's going to get it going there. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. We haven't talked that much about it. Sometimes these marriages after the divorce doesn't really work out, but I do think there's not necessarily resentment, but I think there's regret, him leaving when he did. And I think that there's a lot of regret amongst West Virginia faithful that, hey, let's stop being so proud. Like, he's the best coach arguably in the modern history of our program. Like, let's bring him back. He's having success. He's clearly adapted. He took Arizona to a Fiesta Bowl. He just won at Jack State, just won a conference championship in just the second year in the FBS. Like, let's just stop being too proud and make this thing happen. So I'm pretty optimistic about what he could potentially do.
All right. It was a big night in hoops last night as well. Auburn got a massive win over Georgia State. Not really massive in the sense of the opponent, but as far as how they looked. Problem was, Janai Broome went out, shoulder injury, early in the game. As soon as he hurts it down in the paint, he goes straight for the locker room, comes back out in street clothes. Bruce Pearl had this update after the game.
Start with Janai. Obviously, his right shoulder kind of came right back. He did it a year ago, so he's had some experience with it. We'll take a look at it tomorrow and tell you more. But we hope he's going to be okay.
That doesn't sound great either. And if you saw Broome on the bench during the course of that game last night, it didn't look great. But nonetheless, it's Auburn still gets the win. You had an opportunity for a couple other players to be able to fill in, do some different things. But Janai Broome, as we heard Andy Burcham talk yesterday, G-Mac means a lot to that team.
Yeah. I mean, people singing his praises all season long, and rightfully so, but saying he's a lock to be a top 5 if he just would continue on, a lock to be a top 5 in the Naismith. And that's conservative. A lot of people saying if he had just continued on doing what he was doing, he's probably going to be in a good position to potentially win it. So now that he's banged up, how does that, I mean, they're deep. They have a lot of great players, but he's the anchor. He's the veteran presence. So pretty unfortunate if he can't get back in a timely manner.
No, he was the betting favorite to win it. And so now we'll see how long he's going to be out. If this is something that, the good news was Bruce Pearl said that it had happened to him before last year. So maybe he has an idea of how this operates and what it's going to look like and doesn't miss an extended period of time. Would hate to see that just because of the season that he's having. It's been an exceptional season, not only for him, but for Auburn basketball as well. Be interested to see kind of where it goes. We're wide open as we go today. Whatever you want to talk about, college football wise, we don't have a single guest for you today. We have no segments today. So just whatever you want to get to, you can hit us up, 800-239-9569. Text into the show. Damien's not here. We'll figure it out. 205-834-9450. Tweet in at Mac and Cube if you want to be a part of the show that way as well. How is your prep going for your game on Friday?
It's good. I'm done hazing the barn, all 4 games done. Feel good. So if you feel like we don't have any segments, I think there's a few places we can go.
We do have bad box score of the day. I've got that prepared for us later. A couple good ones. I guess we'll get to that.
Well, if you decide at like 7:51 that you want to do top 3 at 7:52, we'll probably have more time to prepare than Damien usually does. So just give us a heads up there. We can go through the position groups, skill position groups. If you're going by best skill, who would win the national championship? I identified yesterday a couple of really interesting as I was breaking down these games and just reading through them and watching. I watched a lot of tape yesterday. It was really good. Needed it. But my game's kind of hay in the barn, but I've watched a lot of Ohio State and I watched a lot of Tennessee. And there's an area of Tennessee's defense that is really concerning to me. The more I watched it, the more I'm like, oh, goodness gracious, I'm nervous about this. And it's not an area of the defense that's been talked about a lot. I actually think it's been talked about very little because so much of our attention for both Tennessee and Ohio State is, okay, Tennessee's O-line against Ohio State's D-line and vice versa. That's where a vast majority of the conversation has been, is it not?
A lot of the times, yes.
But what we haven't talked about is the depth of Ohio State's wide receivers. And I think if you look at Tennessee, Jermod McCoy, excellent. Ricky Gibson, excellent. Boo Carter, not so much. And that would be concerning to me. Knowing that Boo Carter might draw Emeka Egbuka, and Emeka Egbuka at times has shown the ability to be as good as any receiver in the country out of the slot. And that matchup scares me to death after watching some tape yesterday. Do you ever worry about wide receiver individual matchups against specific secondary players?
Of course. And you wonder, I guess, first and foremost, if that's actually going to end up being the matchup, how much you'll get the matchup. Boo Carter's a guy, runs extremely well. Tim Banks told us a couple times during the season that, his eyes do sort of pull him away from things at times and needs to trust his technique and assignment just a little bit more often than what he does. He freelances a little bit. So I could see where that would be a potential issue. No doubt. I would imagine Tim Banks probably won't want to play as much man coverage there. Tennessee does a lot of it, but I would imagine that he says, listen, we've got the pass rushers. We think we can handle things up front. Why don't we play more zone? Or at least some sort of coverage that's going to give him a little bit of assistance. Would you not believe that that would be the case?
Well, I think that's the problem is, you feel pretty confident that Jermod McCoy can win one-on-one against Jeremiah Smith?
I'm not sure anybody could consistently.
There's only so much help you can give. You know what I mean? That's the thing is that Jeremiah Smith, if Jermod McCoy can handle Jeremiah Smith one-on-one, then this is a moot conversation. I don't think anyone will take that chance. Jeremiah Smith's just too good. He's too good. He's too physically imposing. He's Julio. I mean, that's who he is. I mean, and that's asking a lot for any defensive back to manage that guy one-on-one. I mean, Patrick Peterson was as good as there was in college football for multiple years, and Julio torched him twice. So yeah, I think it's a challenge when looking at what you expect. You also have Carnell Tate, who is likely going to be drawing a little bit of attention himself, because there have been times when people have sold out against Emeka Egbuka. There have been times when people have sold out against Jeremiah Smith, which means Carnell Tate's been one-on-one, and he's been proven the ability to win. And then one more thing that makes it even more difficult is that they can run the ball. Now, if Tennessee can stop the run with just their front four, then fine. They're good. I think they'll be all right. But I think their linebackers are average. I think the front four is excellent. I think the linebackers are average. And I think that if for whatever reason they feel like they have to add the extra hat in the box to stop the run, they're going to be in some serious problems in the secondary with a couple of those matchups. If for whatever reason they're in man coverage and you have Jeremiah Smith on Ricky Gibson, that's an all points bulletin, strike up the fight song alarm for Will Howard. If for whatever reason Jeremiah Smith's lined up in the slot against Boo Carter and you recognize man, game over. Check, touchdown. If for whatever reason you have Emeka Egbuka lined up in the slot, Boo Carter solo, strike up the fight song, let's go. Any of the safeties against those three is a problem. So man, I don't know. Like I think it's a good thing for Tennessee that they have time, because they're gonna need it to figure out. All right, if it feels like Egbuka is a huge part of their plan, here's our adjustment. If Jeremiah Smith is taking over the game, here's our adjustment. If they're running it down our throat, here's our adjustment. Like they're gonna have to have secondary and tertiary plans depending on where the game goes. And man, the more I watch it, the more I'm thinking the matchup is not as good for Tennessee as I originally thought.
All right. Like I said, we'll get to some of your calls, what you want to talk about, what's on your mind. Randy is in Birmingham, wants to talk officiating. Welcome in, Randy.
Hey, guys. Greg, you've alluded to this a couple of times, and really with respect to Miami, what do you think about conference officials protecting teams that are potential playoff teams? It seems like the conference officials might have gotten the memo about protect this team, or maybe they just do it subconsciously or whatever. They protect the better team that has a better chance of going to the playoff because they are conference officials.
Well, I mean, let's just be real. What's to stop them?
Exactly. I think I've seen a lot of instances of that throughout the year.
I think we're looking for it too. If I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment, like the second Miami got a call, it's like, oh, see, like I think we're looking for it. Our antennas are up on it just a little bit. I mean, I remember last year, it really started last year, and I've noticed it more with the leagues that only have one real contender. Last year we were doing Miami, Florida State, and there was a safety that was very obviously a safety. And sure enough, like, hang on a second, Miami, they didn't call it. Florida State just had got tackled in their own end zone, and they didn't call it. And sure enough, it's like the antenna's like, all right, hang on a second. What's the deal here? Like, Florida State's their contender. Miami's nowhere in the picture. And here we are. So all this being said, like, I think we are probably a little too cognizant of it. I really believe that there are people of high integrity involved in making these decisions. I really believe that. And I don't think they have a dog in the fight. I really don't. These officials just want to try to get it right. But let's just eliminate all doubt and make officiating universal and not have it at the conference level. It doesn't make sense.
And we already do that in
why is there
basketball,
Big 12 officiating crews and SEC officiating crews and Pac-12 officiating crews? Like, Let's just have a national officiating group and you just get assigned the games based on where you get assigned. Like, that's what I just don't understand.
Sounds like a pretty good idea. Not sure what it will take to get us there, but does sound like a good idea. Greg in Athens wants to talk roster management. Welcome in, Greg.
Hey, good morning, guys. And, my question is based around the approach that different teams take. And, you still have scholarship limits. And I think as fans, every time we lose someone, we lose our minds. And every time someone is signed to the team, it's an awesome deal. And I think there's a lot of area in between where reality resides that some of these players are definitely going to help you out and some others are going to be a bust. But if you're having to constantly bring in 15, 20 guys every year, I don't see how that sustains success at your program because to me it's indicative of a lack of recruiting the right guys to your team and keeping them. And you have to maintain and build some sense of culture, even though you have these players coming and going.
We still hear coaches talking about culture, Greg. We still hear them say that it's important that they want to try to keep that be a real part of what they're doing inside their facilities. But I don't know to what extent you can have it. I don't know who's going to be stronger with it. If it's coaches with longer tenures, if it's those that don't have staff turnover and can offset some of that or keep key members of their staff in-house. I don't know what is going to make that difference, but I do know there's still going to be some emphasis on it. And like McElroy's talked about before, you have teams like Ole Miss that there may not be as much emphasis on that. Are they going to be able to get over the hump, win a national championship with that? Because it looks like they're reloading in the portal now. And similar to what they did last year and the previous year. So I think folks want to keep that there. They just don't know what the best way to do it when you've got as much turnover top to bottom. Alan is in Jasper, wants to talk playoff. Welcome in, Alan.
Hey, Cole. Yeah, I'm in Jasper. I actually live up in Muscle Shoals. Was driving through and listening to you guys this morning. Cole, we actually met about 14 years ago. I used to work for March of Dimes. You did a little campaign for us back then. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my name's Alan, but, well, you know that. I don't know if you remember the lady that was my boss. She works as a vice president up at Liberty University now. I thought you'd think that was kind of cool.
Wow.
Her name's Benita. Yeah, doing real well. Hey, I was going to talk to you about the playoff. Greg, what game are you doing this week? You might have said, but I didn't hear.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm doing Indiana Notre Dame on Friday.
Oh, cool game. Yeah. Who do you think's going to win that one? I like Notre Dame to actually maybe play Georgia tough. Mobile quarterback, I
don't think Greg can throw a winner out since he's calling it.
Well, I just think it's an interesting matchup for both teams. I actually think they both match up pretty well. I mean, Indiana is really good against designed runs. That's kind of where Notre Dame lives. Indiana's very, very aggressive defensively. They play really vertical. And I think that can cause some problems for Notre Dame. And then conversely, I think Indiana, their offensive line's a bit of a question mark. They've been very solid all year, but the last few games, there've been some confusion, some free runners that have given them some fits, and Notre Dame finds a way to usually get some free runners like that. And Indiana's got a really veteran group of wide receivers, though, that can take advantage of man coverage. That's what Notre Dame runs. So I think it's a really interesting matchup where the teams match up really well, and it's going to kind of come down to execution.
Well, I appreciate the job you guys do. I like listening about X's and O's. I mean, I listen to Feinbaum. I like it, but I like the X's and O's better. And so I don't always get to pass through Birmingham, but really enjoy listening to your show, and y'all have a good day.
Hey, download the app. Watch online, watch on YouTube, listen on the app, listen jocksfm.com. We're also on North Alabama on Talk Radio 730, 103.9 The Ump. So a lot of different ways you can tune in. Appreciate the call. We'll get some more of your calls on the other side, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX if you want to get in. Also, don't forget about our friends at Train. You don't want to be caught in the cold. Schedule your system checkup now for a Train comfort specialist. Train has been recognized 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home for comfort partners here at Jocks. Visit Train.com. Find a comfort specialist near you. Back with more Mac and Cube right after this. 7:24 a.m. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Wednesday, December 18th, right here on Jocks 94.5, jocksfm.com. You can always listen in the app stores. We were just telling the previous listener that called in. Some good news this morning on the Alabama front, Greg. Alabama five-star true freshman quarterback Jaylen Mbway no longer plans to enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a change of heart, or sounds like, because from what I was told, he had a big old check to go somewhere else. So either Alabama got where they needed to go, and I kind of said yesterday, I'm like, if he's going to be a starter, it's justifiable to pay him what you want to pay him. But if he's not going to be the starter, then it's hard to justify paying him more than guys that are the starters. You know what I mean? So I think that must have worked something out, or maybe they got word that Damani Jackson's going to go pro. Like, I don't know what it was, to be honest with you, but sounds like there's a pretty big 180 based on the information that I was hearing yesterday morning.
Absolutely. All right, let's continue some calls, and then we'll get to the best skill in the college football playoff. BHAM Dog wants to chime in. Welcome in, Dog.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. It's been a while since I called, but I listen every morning either by way of iHeart or the YouTube app. So,
Thank you.
there's many ways. And I travel quite a bit through the state, so I'm either in Huntsville or Montgomery today. So many ways to find you guys, and I'm glad we are able to do that.
Sports Radio 740 down there in Montgomery.
That's right. Hey, quick question, and I'll hang up and listen. From a schematic standpoint, I know talent-wise Georgia's probably going to be the better team of Notre Dame and Indiana, and I'm glad that Greg's calling that game, so I'll be able to hear his point of view next week. Who would Georgia rather play now that Gunnar Stockton's probably going to be the quarterback, and I know that changes a lot? Who would Georgia, as a Georgia fan, would rather play? Who's the easiest path to the next round? And I'll hang up and listen, guys. You guys have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
You too, buddy.
I don't think there's a massive difference. I think Notre Dame gives you a little bit more +1 with quarterback run. I think it depends on how confident I was in my offensive line handling movement. I feel like the Indiana front is a lot more active, moves around a lot more. The Notre Dame front will be a little bit more accurate, a little more athletic, maybe a little more heavy-handed, if that's the direction you were going to go. So I think that with the Gunnar Stockton's run capabilities, you could probably catch Indiana in more things, maybe steal more yards. Notre Dame, you might have a little bit more problem just going straight at them. Where would you be on that one, G-Mac?
I think Indiana, I just think when Indiana has to tee it up against teams that are bigger, more physically dominant, I don't know how that would work for them. And Georgia, for as many flaws as they might have, and this is a flawed football team. Let's not get it twisted. This Georgia team is flawed. They might very well win the national championship, but they got major holes. If you don't believe me, see the performances against Kentucky, see the performances against Alabama, see the performance against Ole Miss, see the performance even, throughout the entire game against Georgia Tech. I mean, this is a team that has flaws. So if I'm them, I'd probably rather see Indiana just because there's such a size, speed, height, weight differential. And I think they probably look at Indiana and think they can overpower them. Whereas I think overpowering Notre Dame would be kind of a fool's errand. But I also think Notre Dame's a little one-dimensional. Like, I don't think Notre Dame can beat them through the air. So be an interesting matchup for sure. But as far as this just physicality, I think they'd probably rather have Indiana.
Yeah, it's. I think that'd probably be the direction that we would both go. Melvin wants to talk offensive lines. Welcome into the show, Melvin. You're on the Buyers Right hotline.
Yeah, Cole, I haven't heard you talk about the two linemen that Auburn got in the portal the last couple of days. I just want to hear you what you thought about. Are they a plug and play, or how many linemen do we have coming back anyway? But I just want to hear you expound on both of those. Enjoy the show, guys.
Thanks. You. Appreciate it. Appreciate you listening to the show. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. Dangerous game to play of how many offensive linemen you have coming back, because you don't know if somebody's going to go in late, don't know who's going to hit the portal in the next window. But Xavier Chaplin is the offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. I think both guys are an upgrade based on what you've had at tackle. 6'7", 323. He's got good feet. He's athletic. Good change of direction. He's a bit of a backbender. He gets overextended. His feet stop on him in pass pro. That can be a bit of a problem, but he can move. He gets out in space well. Good effort guy. He finishes. So those things I like about him. I think Mason Murphy from USC, 6'5", 315 is even an upgrade from him. He was asked to do technically a lot of the same things in that system that he's going to be asked to do, specifically in the run game in the Auburn system that he's going to play in. Grinder, plays hard. Does struggle a little bit with speed rushers around the end. I don't think he has very quick feet, but I think he's got good body control. I think both those guys come in, play right away, and probably going to be an upgrade based on what you had the last couple of years. So I don't think that they're coming in two of the best tackles in the SEC, but based on what Auburn's had, and you need depth, and I would anticipate Auburn to sign probably 2 more tackles, and that could even roll over to the next portal window. I think Auburn's got a lot of heavy lifting still left to do in the portal. Wide receiver, probably looking at a tight end, linebackers, defensive linemen, both plural. I think they still attack, but offensive line was some place that they had to go and get help. And I think both those guys can come in and be help, can probably be a little bit better than what you've had in the past because they're good players. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch either one yet, Greg. You've been on your game, so probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched enough of Virginia Tech at times this year to know that there's some pieces on that group without doing a deep dive on them at the moment. There's pieces on that group that are very, very attractive. But that group, for whatever reason, collectively, always seemingly took 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They kind of couldn't get out of their own way at times. Who were the guys that were the ones that were responsible for it? There were penalties at times along the front. There were poor techniques, missed blocks, missed assignments that lead to big negatives. And next thing you know, you're way behind the sticks. Like I would just have to go back, and I haven't had a chance yet to grind on the portal tape yet. That'll come at some point when we get some time to come up for air. I've been focusing mostly on the playoff teams, but it sounds like you like them. You like them pretty good, huh?
I like the Mason Murphy kid a little bit more. But again, you have to understand, I'm comparing him to the Auburn tackles the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
And I thought Dylan Wade held his own out there, but I do think he's better suited at guard. So for what he was asked to do.
He stabilized things.
Yeah, he wasn't a liability like Percy Lewis was, which was
right.
Maybe even past liability, whatever the next term for that would be. I don't know offhand, but yeah, it's I think he definitely stabilized things, was pretty good. I just think these two, from what I've seen in their ability, their skill sets, I think it's an upgrade based on what Auburn's had. You can always upgrade your vehicle at Royal Automotive. They want to help you experience how car buying should be. 4 Royal-owned dealerships in one location, selections and savings unmatched. Royal is the only place to find over 20 unique truck and SUV options in one spot. Right now, get up to $15,000 off select 2024 GMC Sierra models. Then sign and drive with 0 down, 0 security deposit, 0 first month's payment, 0 due at signing on select Volkswagen Atlas, Tiguan, and Taos models. Or sign and drive any new Volvo XC40, XC60, XC90 model with 0 down, 0 due at signing, and 0 for your first payment. Go see my friends at Royal Automotive. They'll help you get the best deal available. All offers valid through January the 2nd. Certain restrictions apply. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Auto Mart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills. All at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 in Vestavia. Online, royalautomotive.net. Remember, make Royal your first and last stop when car shopping. For every ride, there's Royal. All right, we will get to the skill in this college football playoff. More of your feedback, 800-239-9569. Tweet in at Mac and Cube and talk more portal because yesterday was also a busy day in the transfer portal. We'll update you on that later this hour, next year on Jocks 94.5. Wednesday, December 18th, 7:36, right here on Jocks 94.5. As we stated earlier, Montgomery Sports Radio 740, North Alabama Talk Radio 103.9 FM, 7:30 a.m. The Ump. Also online, jocksfm.com or in your app store. Download the app and you can listen or watch on the app each and every morning.
Bill Smith Buick GMC is the GMC Dealer of the Year. You can go and take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll see all the reasons why they've won the national championship GMC dealership 7 times, including 4 in a row. Go check out the deals that you'll find that are 5 figures off the sticker price. You can go get a Yukon Denali, $10,000 off. You go get a GMC Sierra SLE trim down to $46,775 after you take off nearly $14,000 off the sticker. The reason why 75% of their business repeat customers, because nobody else can come close to managing the deals that Bill Smith can provide you. So take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway. BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, John, you said we have a couple texts coming into the show, 205-834-9450. If you would like to text into the show, you can do that there.
We have one text from the 256 asking for y'all's thoughts on candidates for the Jack State opening, with Bill Clark saying that he's not taking the job. Who's someone that you think could, or more so should, take the Jack State job? I
think Brian Vincent's probably going to be up there number one. I thought Bill Clark was easily a candidate for that job. I thought he would have real interest in it. Brian Vincent would be the one that I would just make probably next in line. If you want him, I think you could probably go get him. It's just going to be a matter of if he wants to take it.
I don't even know. For me to really know what their reasonable options are, I would need to know the budget. I know what Rich Rodriguez was making, but Rich Rodriguez, he wasn't a guy that needed money at this point of his career. I mean, he has made a fortune. So that, I think, is something that probably need to figure out first, because it's kind of hard to know exactly where things are going to be. $700,000 a year can get you a good head coach, but it's not going to get you to the upper echelon. And I don't know. I mean, Brian Vincent, would he be willing to leave and do what he does at Jack State again? Potentially, but it's not like he's making a boatload of money. He's making about $600 right now. But if for whatever reason Jack State made an overture, I bet you they can get up where they wanted to get up too. You know, I think it's really a dollars and cents issue that might be a little bit more challenging.
Darren from Tennessee sends in, Cole, I played center in high school, and we had a run play called 35 wham. I know that's like whammy, like champ, but 35 wham, where I got to pull. It was so fun. Cole, did you ever pull?
In college, yes. We had a couple of plays where I could make a clamp call and I could pull, or we had a play that we called truck, and basically if you were uncovered, you pulled. That was just kind of the rule. And that would happen to me occasionally. So, yeah, I did. But wham play, I imagine you were probably the influencer, and then somebody was either blocking back or either you influenced the defensive end, and he blocked down, and you pulled out and kicked out the end. Love a good wham play, by the way. Don't see it run enough this day and age. Anything else?
We've got Matt from Mississippi. He says, I listen to the WJOX app in Summit, New Jersey. Allows me to feel connected with home. Thank you to Matt from Mississippi, all the way up in New Jersey, for listening to that job app. And lastly,
Summit, rich part of town too.
Ooh.
A lot of money in Summit. Really good malls.
Specifically, like right over there near Trader Joe's. I think that's where most of the cash at the Summit usually tends to go.
Now with the new one coming to
Williams-Sonoma, maybe.
There's a new one coming to Hoover, so I don't know. And they have to split some money now. That'll be interesting.
Where is it going in Hoover?
Different Summit.
Across from Best Buy, that little thing where Michael's and Office Depot is over there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll hand it to him. And
that little circular thing with like all the little bitty shops?
No, not that's Patton Creek the other way. The one by where Pizza Hut used to be.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, right up there.
I was at the Summit yesterday.
Okay.
I had to take my wife's Christmas present back.
Oh.
Well, they delivered it with the box showing what it was.
Oh, okay. Well.
So that was a waste. So.
Lastly, Young Bull.
Some call it a waste. Some call, some might be a waste, might be an opportunity. That's the whole thing. Just gauge whether or not she likes it. And say, this isn't for you.
Well, she asked for it. So. but we were both like, this is dumb now that you know. So, and then she thought the price tag was dumb.
Oof.
So we took it back.
Okay.
I took it back. But
Got
it was
'em.
busy up there yesterday.
Yeah. So what time did you get home after all that? Like 9, 10 p.m. with all that traffic?
No, I did that during the day.
Okay,
and then I
awesome.
played about 100 games of kickball with my 4-year-old. So
Lastly, Young Bull
Boom.
texts in, I got a question. How important are college GMs about to be now? Adapt or die?
massive. We're already seeing it. We've heard at Alabama how important that has been. We've seen that was Belichick's first move there at North Carolina. I think that there's going to be a massive portion of you managing your roster, managing your finances, and just managing your people in a similar fashion, Greg, because let's be real, that's what a lot of it's turning into.
100%. GM's a very important job. It was already proven to be a really important job when USC came after Courtney Morgan last year and was willing to pay him 7 figures. I mean, that is pretty remarkable, is it not? I mean, these guys are making as much money in some situations as high-level assistant coaches on the staff. And I'm sure, depending on the place, probably making more money than guys that are in coordinator roles. And I think that's probably going to only continue. They're only going to get more and more valuable as more and more leverage is created for that position. I mean, these guys are making money without there being a ton of leverage prior to the last 2 or 3 years. So wait until there's actual proof of concept and then see how much money these guys will make.
Absolutely. All right. So good questions coming in from all you guys. Maybe a top 3 when we come back. Maybe not. We'll decide then right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. 7:47 a.m. It is Wednesday, December 18th, right here on Jocks at 94.5. Appreciate some of the feedback that we had gotten from the phone lines the last couple segments. G-Mac, I had one tweet that was coming in to the station. If you want to follow the station, it's at WJOX945. Kind of asking about some of the stuff we were talking about with the playoffs a little bit earlier involving Tennessee. SS asks, what did Tim Banks learn from Michigan's secondary that can help with the issues Greg pointed out with Tennessee? Will Ohio State have a completely different game plan? A lot of people said that Ohio State got in trouble trying to play Michigan's game, Greg, and that's why they couldn't get past that one. What would your response be to that question?
I don't think that was entirely what it was. I think Ohio State struggled to run the football. I think Michigan also was able to put a lot of pressure on Ohio State, and there were some field position challenges. There were a couple bad picks thrown by Will Howard. So I think that, and one of them was tipped. I mean, it was really more about the line of scrimmage in that game. I think, put it this way, I think Michigan's secondary is better, even the one that was out there, better in certain places than Tennessee's. I don't think Jermod McCoy would take a backseat to hardly anybody that played in that game. But I do think Michigan's secondary, I mean, they targeted Jeremiah Smith, 5 times in the game? He didn't even get his opportunities. You don't think they haven't learned from that mistake and from not allowing it to become a perimeter game? Like, I have a hard time envisioning that. So that's my thing, is I think you're going to have an Ohio State team that has been very reflective the last couple weeks, because they saw what happened in the Michigan game, and they can probably look at it and say, yeah, that was a little bit self-inflicted because of what we tried to force ourselves into, because it really makes no sense to target your best player as little as they did. Going back, yes, Jeremiah Smith, 7 targets, 1 in the second half. Egbuka, 8 targets, 4 completions. I think they're going to have to be a little bit more complex with the motion schemes. They didn't do enough of that. They were a little too static, and I just think it was an oversight, thinking that they would be able to out-physical Michigan a little bit, and they weren't able to do that.
Also just felt like from an assignment perspective in the run game, Michigan's D-line did a nice job. Mason Graham and company were solid, but linebacker run-through was a real problem. Just didn't come off. I don't know if that was misidentification, if that was, because you know that you've got a newer center in the game, so if there was some confusion there. And then I didn't think, too, they even really attacked down the field well enough. Didn't even really attempt it until later in the game, which I thought was a little bit odd. And maybe they didn't think the protection would hold up, and that's one of the reasons they didn't do that, because I agree with you. Everybody has said, well, they just tried to play Michigan's game and they got caught. I didn't see it that way at all. They were given run looks in the box. They tried to run. It wasn't successful, but that's technically, as the dealer would say, you should hit there. It's a run look. You're supposed to run the football. Didn't really go the way that they intended it to. Things can go the way you intend them to at Game Day Men's Health, though. If you're having trouble sleeping, if you feel on edge, Game Day Men's Health would like to help you today. If you lack energy, it could be low testosterone and the effects that those have on you. Also, not getting sleep or feeling on edge could be that as well. Here's what Game Day Men's Health wants to do. You go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today, set up a free consultation. You get a free testosterone test, a free PSA test. That's going to get you going right away to get you where your baseline health is and see what they can do for you, how they can help you. Then they're going to give you a 10% discount on any service that you might have if you mention Cube. Also have weight loss programs at Game Day Men's Health. Just go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today. Sign up for that free consultation. You get those 2 free tests, see where your baseline health is, and then they're going to give you the consult of what they can do for you moving forward. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Sign up today. Minimal upfront cost from the programs that they offer. Great people, locker room environment. That's Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com. All right, so no Damian today or the rest of the week. Is he off the rest of the week?
Correct.
Okay. We will get to a top 3, however, and I'll throw it out there for us today to get it going. Your top 3 bowl games involving SEC teams, not including playoff games. And I will get us started on this topic, GMAC. Number 1, I do want to give a shout out quickly to the Birmingham Bowl because I have a lot of interest in Georgia Tech Vandy.
Homer.
Yes, but could be if Haynes King and Diego Pavia go, I think that could make that a really interesting game and a very fun watch. But number 3 for me is going to be the Union Home Gasparilla Bowl with Tulane and Florida. Now, we know John Summerall's team are always going to show up. Physicality not going to be an issue. Dorian Mintz, their quarterback in the portal. But now, DJ Lagway, a couple extra weeks of practice, a little more familiarity with some of the guys around him. I want to see if he can take a little bit more of a step with some extra weeks of work. And then does that give Florida a little bit of a boost heading into the offseason? Number 2 for me, the SRS Distribution Bowl. Basically rinse and repeat with Texas A&M and what their quarterback situation is going to look like. Also, without some of that defensive line prowess, is that defense anywhere close to what it has been? Because it wasn't really the same down the stretch even against a USC team that just hasn't been great this year. They'll be down a couple of guys as well. I imagine Woody Marks going to the NFL draft. He's not going to play. A couple other starters hit the portal. That could be an issue as well. And then number 1 for me, I'm going to go the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, South Carolina, Illinois. First off, these are 2 really good football teams. Second off, I think the South Carolina team is kind of the antithesis of what today's bowl games are for a lot of rosters and teams. I think this is a group that has a lot of leadership. I think they're going to want to finish. And Lenore Sellers gets a little extra practice time. Now, Mike Shule, the offensive coordinator, so we don't know exactly how that's going to look, but I imagine it won't be too different from what they've done this year. Want to see him continue to go and continue to develop and see if he can be a little bit different in that game against a good Illinois front.
Love it. I love that you gave the shout out to the Birmingham Bowl. Love our hometown. Proud to live here. It doesn't make my top 3. I'll go with a few that are, I think, very interesting. I think there's actually quite a few good SEC matchups. We'll start with number 3, Cheez-It Citrus. A lot of the reasons why you referenced. Illinois is going to be without some weapons in this game, but South Carolina finished with a bang, and I think it could, if in victory, it could just continue the momentum that they created at the end of the year throughout the offseason. A loss in this game to a Big Ten team like Illinois, I'm not saying that it would, eliminate all the goodwill that's been built up the last 2 months, but it would certainly leave you with a bit of a bad taste in your mouth after what was kind of a breakthrough season for Shane Beamer. That's number 3. Number 2, Iowa, Missouri. Missouri, just a very difficult team to figure out. This is the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl. Very difficult team to figure out. Some good moments and some really bad moments. Partly because of injury. A bunch of guys that probably won't play in the game, but still, I think Missouri is a place that has had some success in recent years. And I think they might have a bit of a chip on their shoulder given how little respect they've generated nationally. So I think this would be an opportunity to go against an Iowa team that's super physical. And Iowa is traditionally, I feel like, played pretty well against SEC teams in situations like this. And then finally, Bama, Michigan, ReliaQuest. I mean, it's Bama, Michigan. 2 of the biggest brands in the sport. And I'm not sure that one needs a long and lengthy explanation as to why it's top 3 for me.
Number 3 for me is that Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, South Carolina, Illinois. I do think it is probably going to be one of, if not the most fun non-playoff game, especially for the SEC. Number 2 is the Kinders Texas Bowl between Baylor and LSU. Interesting that it's basically on head-to-head with the Citrus Bowl because it starts 30 minutes later on New Year's Eve at 2:30. You have 2 teams kind of going in different directions. Baylor won, I think, 6-7 straight to close out the season. LSU started off kind of hot and then kind of waned a little bit late. And so interesting to see where both of these teams are. Yes, I know the rosters are different, but it's interesting, kind of like the Duke-Ole Miss game. Those 2 teams ended up about the same, but they had vastly different paths to get there. Number 1 for me is the Birmingham Bowl, Georgia Tech and Vandy. And it's, of course, Georgia Tech would come this year when I'm out of town, as opposed to last year when I was here and they were supposed to be here and they didn't allow them. But I do think it's going to be a fun, fascinating, interesting game because both teams overachieved this year. And to be able to cap off a win, whomever gets it, you'll be able to ride that momentum into next year.
I believe it is. I don't know if it's, I think it's Kinders, but it's like a Texas.
It's like a
seasoning rub company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, Greg, you should know how that's pronounced as a Texan.
Yeah. It's Kinders.
Kinders, see?
Oh, okay. Who
I
knew?
was wrong again. little bit of transfer portal update, and then we'll get to the best skill in the college football playoff. If we doled out wins just based on that, who would advance and who would be your national champion? December 18th, Wednesday, 8 a.m., hour number 2 underway right here on Jocks 94.5. Some big names floating around the portal, but I did notice one, I don't know if you would say disturbing trend, odd trend in the Southeastern Conference. Day before yesterday, into the portal, you had multiple punters from Vanderbilt. Arkansas, LSU, Texas A&M, Florida, Auburn, and Missouri all had punters enter the portal. Your gets out of the portal. Texas gets Utah punter Jack Brammeister. Florida gets Michigan punter Tommy Duran. Auburn gets Oklahoma State punter Hudson Cack. Vanderbilt gets Wazoo punter Nick Haberer. So I don't know if punting is just a problem in the SEC, if it's just better everywhere else, but we know it means more here. So I guess we're having to go other places to facilitate our punting, GMAC, and just didn't realize that we had to outsource it from other conferences to that extent.
Just like, I don't feel like it's that big a deal to go and get punters from Australia. Seems like it's pretty standard protocol.
That's normal now. You're the outlier if you don't have a punter from Australia in college football.
Exactly. So if you're willing to go all the way to Australia to go get a punter, why wouldn't you just go and get
an Australian punter from another school?
You can save some mileage, save some money. Just go and get an Australian guy from the ACC. How hard can it be?
Have I told you the story about the kid that Tennessee has and how Heupel recruited him? They told me this. They recruited him during COVID, and so they couldn't really visit him. And special teams coach kind of gets him on this Zoom, and he has his like personal coach or whatever out there. I don't know what a kicking coach, kicking instructor, kicking technician. What do we reference that as?
Kicking agent, probably.
What that is. But he's out there, representation, yes.
Team.
He's out there with him.
Team.
And he's kind of, saying, all right, this is Jackson Ross, by the way. And so they're working him through these drills. And he said, man, he's like right corner inside the 10. And he hits like 5 in a row. Left corner inside the 10. He hits like 4 in a row. And he was like end over end punt. Turn it over, whatever. And he's doing them all. And he said, so they finished him up, and the kicking, Heupel's like, great, man. Like, looks good. We'll be in touch with you. And the kicking coach like, hold on a second. He says, do you want to run some routes? And Heupel says, what? And he said, do you want me to run some routes for him? And Heupel's like, why? He goes, here, I'll show you. And so he runs like a deep out, like a corner route, and like runs a route up the seam, and the dude punts him the ball in like perfect placement every time, running his routes. And Heupel said they were still in the Zoom. He texted the special teams coach. He said, offer the kid right now and get him here. We're done. We're good. But he's out there running routes, and this dude's punting routes. And he said, it was in stride every time. Never even heard of that. Never heard of that. It's like a real thing.
Guy I played with in high school named Garrett Hartley ended up kicking for the New Orleans Saints. Kicked at Oklahoma. He also punted for us, and I saw him punt one into a trash can from like 40 yards away. It was probably 50 yards away. It was pretty sweet. Like, golly, most quarterbacks couldn't throw it, and he punted a perfect spiral into the trash can. So it can be done. That's pretty sick if he's doing it on routes. That's another level.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But apparently that's the way it looked. And that's just wild to think about. Number one, you're recruiting a guy that far away on Zoom, and you sign him on Zoom because of some of the things that he's doing that, doesn't really have anything. All right, Backyard Adventures. I mentioned yesterday, I think my 4-year-old and I played 10 or 12 games of kickball. We played like 8 games of flag football. We were out there. We were outside all day yesterday. He wore me out, and he was still going last night after dinner. He wanted to go back out with his brother and play more. But they were on the playground a little bit, swings, rock wall, slide, got over to the basketball goal, shot a little bit. They're all there thanks to Backyard Adventures. Jeff and the guy came and set the playground up in our backyard. I didn't have to pick up a tool. I didn't have to pick up a piece of the equipment. They put it all together, all of it. We went to their place at Cahaba Valley Road, found out what they had, saw it. We customized it. They did it no problem. And then GMAC, they did for us what they did for you. They put that basketball goal in, and our kids absolutely love it.
Yeah, and they're awesome. Really, really awesome with dealing with challenges. Like, for instance, they came out to do our basketball goal. There was a cement block underneath the ground, an old driveway underneath the ground where we were trying to get it installed. And we didn't know what to do with it. They came out, they cut the cement, installed it properly, just went the extra mile. Could have taken some shortcuts and didn't. They're just first class, and they do things the right way. So go and see Jeff and the guys. You'll be glad you did. They'll add to your family's experience just like they've added to ours. So go and see them off Cobb Valley Road, or you can go online at backyardalabama.com.
Yeah, it's and they'll come out and do all that concrete cutting if you need them to. They'll come out and make sure they're not going to hit the pipes or anything like that. We had Jeff and the guys over at our house doing that. They had to cut a little bit of concrete. A buddy of mine, what time is it? 8. Okay, we're good. My buddy Garrett, his son is getting a basketball goal for Christmas, and it took him a little bit longer to get kind of everything cut and moved around a little bit. And he came home from school and saw everything cut up and got a little peculiar, started asking questions, and was spot on. But they just had to say, oh, I don't know, they're working on some plumbing or something under there. It's just no big deal. But it basically,
moving a house, don't worry.
I think he told me that'd be a perfect place for a basketball goal. And Jeff and the guys are setting him up with one for Christmas. So, yeah, it'll be pretty cool once he gets it going, because I know he'll be pumped to have it. All right, we mentioned transfer portal. I want to get to a couple of those, and then after our next break, we'll begin to break down these college football playoff teams by skill only. Speaking of skill, Greg, LSU continues to go deep into the skill department as they get commitments yesterday from Oklahoma wide receiver Nick Anderson and Florida State wide receiver Destin Hill. Now, Nick Anderson, that whole receiving room was beat up at some point this year. He didn't get to go near to the extent that he wanted to, but a guy that if you talk to that coaching staff early in the season, they really thought he was going to be able to help and thought he was going to be able to do some good things. If you go back to 2023 as a freshman, 38 catches, 798 yards, 10 touchdown receptions as a freshman on that Oklahoma football team. So has the opportunity to turn into a pretty good player there for LSU. And then from Florida State, they go grab Destin Hill. So we knew they were going to lose some prowess at wide receiver. And I'll say this, we had Brian Kelly late in the season twice. And after the whole thing with Bryce Underwood took place, he made it pretty clear to us, listen, that's fine. We're in the market. We're going to go spend. And you kind of roll your eyes like, yeah, okay, whatever. We'll see. But I think he's proven now that they are going to go out and spend, and they are going to go out and try to get some more talent. And it looks like the skill positions are not going to be an issue because yesterday you added a couple as well, GMAC. It looks like this LSU squad is going to be very different, but also not going to be short on talent.
Oh, they'll have talent. I think it would be appealing if you are a wide receiver to know your quarterback, to know what style of offense it's going to be, to see how pass happy they're going to be. So it's not that unusual to see them becoming a very attractive destination for wide receivers in the portal. There's a lot of certainties, whereas at other places, there's a lot of uncertainties. So I think that not only do they have deep pockets, that's great, but they've proven to be a launch pad for guys that want to get to the NFL. I mean, they're a year removed from having 2 first-round picks at wide receiver and a Heisman Trophy winner. And look at the odds market going into next year. A lot of people think Nussmeier's a top 5 candidate, and I certainly don't disagree. So I think there's a lot of things going for him beyond the NIL. I know everyone wants to look at it and say, oh, it's NIL. They're out. I don't think NIL is the ultimate differentiator for everybody. I think it's big for many, but I don't think it's the end all be all. Some places are outspending people, and the access to resources is insane. It really is. I mean, there are some schools that are doubling what other guys are getting in the portal or in recruiting, and that's just insane. LSU's not doing that, but they have a lot to sell beyond what they have in their collective. So I think that's very helpful.
All right, because if you recall yesterday, we told you Barryon Brown, Kentucky wide receiver, had committed to LSU, and then they did some work on defense as well. Mansour Dolan out of Virginia Tech, a cornerback, played 33 games, 6 interceptions in his career. He commits. Florida edge Jack Pyburn, who I think will be a good fit in that system with what Blake Baker wants to do. Just let him rip, let him be aggressive, move him some, kind of the Whit Weeks treatment, but not off the ball as much as he got late in the season once they lost Harold Perkins and they had to start moving him around a little bit. Now you add Nick Anderson, Destin Hill to that, and you've got some talent. Ole Miss yesterday gets former Alabama and Auburn defensive back Antonio Kite. Pete Golding's had some pretty good success with guys that he's previously coached. See if he can find a way to get that done again. Arkansas running back Rashad Dubinion is in the portal. But they do get commitments from Texas A&M tight end Jaden Platt and UAB wide receiver Cam Shooks. So this is Arkansas is one of those teams, Greg, we haven't talked about much, but they have been gutted in the portal thus far. I mean, they have been hit hard by the transfer portal, and good to see them at least beginning to acquire some names because I don't know about you, I was beginning to wonder about the roster, and that's the team that's going to play in a bowl game and just how it's going to look.
Well, not only that, but also Sam Pittman was retained because the expectation was, hey, there was some good moments this year. And now a lot of guys that led to those good moments are no longer going to be with the program. So that's, I think, another layer of this that is a little bit uncomfortable for Arkansas fans because they decided to keep their guy for continuity purposes. And now a lot of the guys that you thought might be around are no longer going to be around.
You've had Jaden Wilson, wide receiver. He's out. He's going to UCLA. Tevis Metcalf going to Michigan along with TJ Metcalf, two safeties. Tyrus Washington is in the portal, a wide receiver. Varkey's Gums, tight end, who I thought was going to be exceptional. He looked great at North Texas his freshman year. They just hadn't used him. He's in the portal. Joshua Braun's going to Kentucky. Brad Spence, linebacker, is going to go to Texas. Isaiah Satinga, receiver, is in the portal. Malachi Singleton, backup quarterback, is in the portal. Edge defender Nico Devalier is in the portal. Jalen Braxton, a corner, is going to go to Ole Miss. You've got Luke Haas, tight end, going to Ole Miss, and Patrick Kudas, offensive lineman, going to Ole Miss. It's just a lot, specifically from the offensive side of the football, that's going to be gone. And you just kind of wonder how they're going to hold up. Syracuse gets a commitment from former Alabama offensive lineman Naquil Bertrand. USC, Zachariah and Zion Branch are going to hit the portal, Greg. Zachariah Branch is electric. It's the best way I know to describe him. He is dynamic, specifically in kick returns, but he can take some of those quick throws and make them into massive gains. There's not a lot of people that can counter his speed anywhere in college football. I'm sure he'll be highly sought after.
Yes, he is about as dynamic as you'll find. Now, as far as the down in, down out usage, I think there's probably more in the tank as far as what he can accomplish as a traditional wide receiver. I think there's quite a bit more in the tank, but I also don't really know. I mean, he's never really been utilized like that. It's been a lot of catch and run. There have been some deep balls that they've thrown him. I think he's insane with the ball in his hands. He has ridiculous juice and is a guy that I would absolutely welcome. 100% welcome onto my roster. Like, no doubt about it. Take him, figure out what to do with him after the fact. But he's a big time name, big time juice, big time upside. Now it's just about, can you get the best out of him? And if you can, you got an All-American contender.
So that's a couple of guys that are going to hit the portal. Texas A&M gets another good one. Mississippi State wide receiver Mario Craver from right here in Clay Chalkville. Thought he had a great year as a freshman, still learning a lot about college football and was able to be productive. Coaches over there raved about him. I can remember being there in the spring, and they're like, wait till you see this Mario Craver kid. Like, he's going to have an impact. And now he'll end up at Texas A&M, which you look at what A&M's doing on the offensive side of the ball, a couple of good gets for them here in the portal as well. Georgia Southern's going to get former Auburn wide receiver Camden Brown. Mississippi State, Greg, this is one I want your feedback on if you have any. Florida State quarterback Luke Kromenhoek is going to be at Mississippi State. Obviously didn't play a ton, but do you have anything on Kromenhoek heading to Mississippi State?
Yeah, there were some real positives. Obviously, team was a disaster, so you have to remove the challenges of evaluating, all right, is this the result of of him, or is this the result of what was around him? So you got to kind of remove that, and you got to just do your best to evaluate the player and the skill set more so than evaluate the other aspects of what went on at Florida State this year. But I think the skill set is attractive. Get Blake Shapen back. Hopefully he gets another year. I'm assuming he will. I obviously don't know that just yet, but there's reason to believe he will. So you get him back for another year. He bridges the gap to Croman Hoke, who can sit and learn and develop, and it should be a winning recipe for all of that. So I think it's a good spot to be in. I really do.
A couple others out of the portal. Clemson. Do we have an alarm sounder like that we can put out there, like a ABC News? Wide receiver Tristan Smith commits to the Clemson Tigers from Southeastern Missouri State.
From not Clemson.
That is a transfer portal player that Dabo has signed. Colorado gets a commitment from former Alabama defensive lineman Jaheim Otis. And Boston College, Greg's going to get a commitment from former Alabama quarterback Dylan Lonergan. He a good fit for that system up there under Bill O'Brien?
I think it's a great setup for him. Great quarterback coach, a run game that is going to be physical, NFL pro style system. Not a huge arm. That would be the one concern, but there is an awful lot to like about what Lonergan has, and I think it's a great pickup for both parties. You probably get an opportunity to compete day one for the starting job. Grayson James will be the inside. Will have the inside track there, and if it's not him, then you'll have a chance here down the road. And we saw Eli Holstein didn't at Pitt this year. I watched Lonergan and Holstein throw side by side, and Lonergan was the better player, at least at practice. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully things will work out for Lonergan. I'm definitely wishing the best for him.
Absolutely. All right, so that's a little bit of a transfer portal update. Vanderbilt also gets a commitment from Texas defensive tackle Aaron Bryant. Texas gets a commitment from defensive tackle Cole Bernard. And Mississippi State is going to get Michigan State wide receiver Jerron Glover, Oklahoma wide receiver Brennan Thompson, Northern Illinois edge Navia Sanders, and NC State edge Red Hibbler. Where if you go back and watch his 23 film, he was actually pretty good. He only played in 4 games this year. He's a bigger, thicker, like 4-down defensive end. He's a little bit of a lighter 3-down defensive end, but he's got some versatility, good, strong hands. He took on some double teams against Tennessee this year, held the point of attack, but like I said, not healthy for the majority of this season as Mississippi State tries to bolster that defensive line. So we've mentioned a couple of times, we're going to break down this college football playoff based only on skill. We will begin that when we come back next right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. 8:21 Wednesday, December 18th, right here on Jocks 94.5. We've hit SEC bowl games. We've hit the transfer portal. We'll get back into the college football playoff here momentarily. 800-239-9569. If there's anything you want to get in, ask about the college football playoff, questions, concerns you may have about it, or maybe what it's going to look like. We had a little bit of a practice last week on if we just took the offensive lines in this year's college football playoff, who would win? Tennessee ended up, or actually just physicality, not just the offensive line, just overall physicality, brute force, blunt force trauma. Who would win? Tennessee was our team. I think that would surprise a lot of people outside of those that hadn't listened to us on a regular basis and talk about that team. But now we want to look at the skill positions. And if we were just basing it on the skill positions, who wins this college football playoff? Remember not to get caught in the cold, though. Speaking of cold, the temperatures for these games this weekend are pretty chilly. So if you think that's going to be a massive part of who wins, who loses, who goes down, you probably want to take a look at some of the temps that are going to be hitting these games. I think it's South Bend, 30 degrees, Greg, 30% chance of snow. State
They're
College.
saying slightly lower than that, but who knows? You know, by the time the sun sets and everything, cold is cold. Whether it's 26 or 31, it doesn't really make much of a difference. It's really more about the wind. The wind.
State College, 25, partly sunny. Columbus, 25, mostly cloudy. And Austin, 60 degrees, mostly sunny.
One of these things is not like the other.
At all.
Although, to be honest, those temperatures don't sound so bad. I guess we were thinking it'd be like single digits or something. So hearing it be like 30 something is like, okay, like that's not awful.
The talk, though, in Columbus is that the feels like temp will be single digits.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit after the game gets going. So we'll see. But hey, listen, everybody's got to deal with it. It's not like, again, it's not like Florida and Miami are going up there. So I think it is a little bit less of an issue as a lot of people are trying to make it. So before we dive into the skill that's going to be involved in this playoff, I mentioned not getting caught in the cold. Schedule your system checkup now from a Train Comfort Specialist. Train has been recognized 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home comfort partners here at Jocks. Visit Train.com to find a comfort specialist near you. All right, so we'll run through the bracket, Greg, of just skill. I'm assuming we're including running backs and tight ends. Who are we including defensively if we just base this on skill? Just
if
corners
we're
and safeties?
Defensive skill, yeah, it'd probably have to be linebackers too. I mean, anyone not along the line of scrimmage. I mean, we already did the national championship of physicality, so that would be mostly offensive and defensive line. So we probably need to just, whatever position groups weren't accounted for the last time around, because you included some tight ends too.
Yeah, we can go either way, though. We can just do offensive skill and crown a national champion that way. It's up to you, however you want to roll with it.
Yeah, let's just do offensive skill. We can do defensive skill tomorrow.
All right, offensive
skill, we'll do that.
All right, so we will start in Austin where it's going to be 60 degrees. Clemson and Texas. This is closer than maybe some people that haven't paid attention to Clemson would realize because there is some skill there that's pretty good. Phil Maffa obviously is a 1,000-yard rusher. Not a lot of people are really going to talk about him and what he's done. Antonio Williams is a very good football player, can hurt you out of the backfield, obviously down the field as a wide receiver. Bryant Wesco, pretty good player. So I think it's closer than some people might think, Greg, but honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not close. It's got to be Texas, in my opinion.
I think if everyone were at 100%, if Phil Maffa were at 100%, Brenning Stool, if he were at 100%, he's good to go. But I mean, I think it's closer than you realize. It's just the depth would give Texas an advantage. You want to go starters kind of across the board, exclusively their starters at 100%, everyone's healthy. I think you can make a pretty good case that Phil Maffa at his best is pretty dang sporty. You can make a case that Brenning Stool and Gunnar Helm's comparable. I think you can make case that Wesco and Matthew Golden, pretty close. Bond and Antonio Williams, pretty close. I think it's a lot closer than people realize. But just accounting for the skill, I'd probably go Texas, but it's really close, like toss-up close.
Yeah, Texas has had, we've seen multiple backs have success for them this year. Wisner has been the black down the stretch, but Jaylen Mbway's done some good things for them this year. I think Gunnar Helm is vastly underrated at tight end, has really changed his game this season as opposed to last. Isaiah Bond, even though he went out of the SEC championship game, has been great at times. Ryan Wingo, the freshman receiver, has been unbelievable at times. Silas Bolden can still get you out of the slot. Then you throw in a DeAndre Moore, who had a bit of a hip pointer earlier in the year. He's looked like a number one here down the stretch. Matthew Golden's looked like a number one at times. They go deep in Texas as far as the skills concerned. So we will say that Texas moves on there. Let's go down to Tennessee and Ohio State. If we're just basing this is our playoff based on offensive skill. Greg, Tennessee and Ohio State, which direction are you going?
Man, I think it's Ohio State by a mile. I know that outside of running back, I think Tennessee's wide receivers are very underwhelming. And that's, I think, a bit of a concern. I do think that from time to time, I'm impressed. I think you get consistency from Brew McCoy. I think Squirrel White is fine. I don't think he's a game changer. And then I would say Brazel has been a little disappointing and underwhelming. A little disappointing and underwhelming this year. It doesn't mean he's not a good player. It doesn't mean he can't make plays. I'm just not as convinced that group is a group that can take over the game and feel great about him. Sampson, however, amazing. But
not over that
he's
backfield.
Kind of the only guy. What's that?
Not over that backfield with both Henderson and Judkins. Just no. I love Dylan Sampson. He's awesome, but no, not over both of those.
Not over both. I think Sampson's great, and to be honest with you, I think the backup's fine, Bishop or whatnot. Like I think he's a solid piece and probably a little underrated, but he's not the same as those guys. So that would be my concern, and I would hope that they can hopefully not make it a skill position game if you're Tennessee, but if it becomes that direction, if it goes that way, I'm not confident that it's going to go well for the Volunteers.
No, I will say, though, the one position that I do think Tennessee is still a little bit underrated on, and honestly, this wouldn't be just a walk away for them. If we did include tight ends, Kitzelman, Holden Stoss, Ethan Davis have been pretty good for them. However, athleticism is not necessarily their strength. I like them because they can be more physical and because they can be problematic in different ways, adding some of that physicality. And we know what I thought about Cade Stover last year. And while I don't think Ohio State is necessarily that at tight end this year, when G. Scott is able to get the football in his hands, I think he can be a really good player. And I think he's great at the line of scrimmage too. So I wouldn't even tilt that far towards Tennessee. I'm with you. I think this is a bit of a walk away. We know what Jeremiah Smith is. Carnell Tate's been solid. I think it's Ohio State by a landslide. Ibuka has been great.
It's not close.
It's really not close. So Ohio State will move on, and they'll face Oregon. We'll get to that game a little bit later. SMU and Penn State is one that's very interesting when you begin to break down that skill. Which direction do you lean in this matchup?
Now, this one's tough because I think if you're going on sheer quantity, it's SMU by a mile. If you're going with the best available, it's Penn State because Tyler Warren's the closest thing to Brock Bowers that we've seen, and their 1-2 punch at running back is pretty tremendous. I'm going to lean ever so slightly in favor of SMU. There's not a receiver on Penn State's roster that scares me. Not one. I do think Roderick Daniels for SMU, their slot, really good player. Brashard Smith, their running back / wide receiver, his versatility, really, really good. The funny thing is that SMU lost arguably their best weapon in the passing game earlier this year in RJ Maryland, and it didn't really have a huge impact on them. So I would go in favor of SMU here just on sheer depth and reliability and quality across the board. But I do think the high side with Penn State is definitely intriguing.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, but I'm still going to lean Penn State. I'm with you on the wide receivers. It's kind of odd how that position has just been a little bit of a letdown for a long time now, specifically when you look at what Auburn was able to do this year with Keandre Lambert-Smith. And he put up pretty good numbers at Penn State, but he didn't feel as dangerous there as he did at Auburn. And it's just that, we didn't think Julian Fleming was going to be the answer. He's a bigger straight line speed guy. That wasn't exactly what you needed, but it just hasn't been great in a while. I like both backs, and I think Tyler Warren is a top 3 takeover guy in this playoff. If you're just talking about individuals that can go take over a game, completely change the game, be that guy that nobody can do anything about, I only think maybe 2-3 teams have that guy in this tournament. So I'm going to lean Penn State. Backs that they can lean on, a quarterback that's grown, doesn't make a ton of mistakes anymore, can add a little bit to the run game if he has to. Obviously, the other option's not going to be there. Are we including quarterbacks here? Because we haven't mentioned quarterbacks yet.
No, we're not.
Okay,
We're not
including
quarterbacks.
Well, he wasn't going to put it over the edge anyway.
Quarterbacks is a separate conversation.
We'll do that next. Yes. So I'll still go with Penn State moving on. But I understand all the arguments with SMU. And I do believe top to bottom, they have more quality skill. It's just Tyler Warren is that different for me when you're talking about being a skill guy that could take over a game. All right. Indiana Notre Dame would be the final matchup. You're on the call for this game Friday night. But offensive skill, which direction are you going?
Yeah, man, it's a tough one because I love the backs so much. I mean, both running backs for Notre Dame are so difficult to defend. But I'm kind of underwhelmed with the wide receivers at Notre Dame. They're fine. Bo Collins is solid. Greathouse is solid. I think Chris Mitchell, he's got some juice, but it doesn't seem to get as much as he probably deserves in the passing game. So I'm going to lean ever so slightly towards Indiana as far as skill position is concerned. I think Elijah Surratt is excellent. I think Omar Cooper is really good. I think they have 2 slot guys that are going to be really important in this game. I would imagine just because of how quick and agile they are and how difficult they are to defend. And then I think they're pretty underrated at running back as well. Like Ellison and Lawton to me are really good backs. Both have gone for more than 10 touchdowns this year. So I lean ever so slightly in favor of Indiana with the skill, but it's not by much. And it's kind of uncomfortable, frankly, because I love the backs of Notre Dame so much.
Yeah, we love Jeremiah Love specifically and everything he's capable of doing. And it looks like he'll be healthier heading into this playoff running back for Notre Dame. But I'm with you on Elijah Surratt. He doesn't play like the bigger option because he's got real juice, good quickness. But Omar Cooper is just, he is fiery and can be a problem, whether it's some of the quick stuff, quick screens. He can be a problem down the field a little bit. So I'm with you. I just think collectively, and this is where people sleep on Indiana, is just not really having an idea of how good some of that skill is. Justice Ellison can go. And when you watch him, you're just consistently wowed by what they're able to do just because they're not household names. You're used to putting guys on that you all right, I'm going to watch this kid. I want to see what he's all about. But then you see the juice that the receivers have, the juice that the backs have. I love how their backs turn north and south and just find ways to hit the hole hard, even though they're not super big and physical backs. But I'm with you. I'll go Indiana there. And Indiana will move on to face Georgia in our college football playoff of offensive skill, which we will complete when we return next on Jocks 94.5. We mentioned Memphis picks up a win in their bowl game, Scooter's Coffee Bowl, last night. And bowl season now in full swing. We all love it. It is the most wonderful time of the year. You will get more bowl action today/tonight. Western Kentucky, James Madison in the Boca Raton Bowl. That's at 4:30 today. So get off work early and go watch 8-5 Western Kentucky and 8-4 James Madison. Your guy Veltkamp, Greg, is going to play for Western, then hit the portal. So some coaches are for that. We heard a couple of coaches, specifically Kenny Dillingham, talking about his guys and how he wants them to be a part of what they're doing as far as waiting to hit the portal. But Veltkamp going to play and then hit the portal. And then tonight on ESPN, the Art of Sport LA Bowl. Cal at 6-6, UNLV at 10-3. Of course, Barry Odom's moved on. We'll see exactly how that looks because it looks like Sacramento State is going to name Brendan Marion, the UNLV OC, as their head coach. But he'll finish this one out, and they should be okay. Cal not going to be with their quarterback as Mendoza's hit the portal. So I would like UNLV in that one, G-Mac. Not sure exactly where you're thinking or.
Yeah, I would probably take both favorites tonight. James Madison, about 7-point favorite over Western. I could be talked into Western, though. It's not super comfortable, but I could certainly be talked into Western. I think they're solid. And then for UNLV, I think UNLV is probably going to be in a pretty good spot. I know Barry Odom's gone. But, I mean, I don't know who's available for Cal. I mean, their quarterback's in the portal. They have a few other guys in the portal as well. I think their secondary is great, but can they stop the run? That's the question. So I'd probably lean slightly, just slightly, towards UNLV, but I don't feel great about it in that one.
Well, UNLV is going to have Christian Moore at tight end, 44. They'll have Ricky White at wide receiver. So I think Haj Malik Williams at quarterback. So you give me those guys with Brendan Marion still calling plays in a bowl game with a lot of new faces. I'll take UNLV in that one tonight. All right, we'll see if that pesky Cal
picking bowl
defense,
game's the hardest thing ever.
It's tough. It is tough.
I mean, it's impossible. Like, I don't even know who's playing, who's not playing. Like, I'm watching last night, kind of operating under the assumption that West Virginia wasn't going to be at full go with the amount of personnel that they probably had and their coach getting fired and people opting out. And then next thing you know, there's a ton of people playing. So, I don't know. It's just hard to feel good about making these picks with a lot of conviction these next couple days.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you need conviction on getting the rodents out of your house, Wayne's can help you. You know they can help you with your yard. It's in dormancy now, but getting it green once spring arrives again, Wayne's can help with that. The mosquitoes in the spring, yes, they can help there. Termites, keeping them out. Pests, keeping them out. But now the rodents, the critters. If you're having wildlife issues in your home, Wayne's can help. They have wildlife removal services and prevention services to make sure the birds or squirrels don't get back into the attic or the crawl space. Just another reason, Greg, that our listeners need to call Wayne's.
Yeah, call them at 866-WAYNES-1. That's 866-WAYNES-1. They do an awesome job. Very, very grateful to everything that I've received from Wayne's. Been using their services for a long time. Have made living in our home even more comfortable than before. Go and call them today, 866-WAYNES-1. That's 866-WAYNES-1. Visit callwaynes.com and let Wayne's continue to create your happy place.
Okay, so we're talking college football playoff based on just offensive skill. Texas and Arizona State's our next matchup. Do we need to have a conversation on that one?
No, that would be Texas.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest one that we're going to have today. A little bit more of a challenge, and I think it'll be a fun one. Ohio State and Oregon. Quarterback not included here. So Dylan Gabriel out of this specific conversation. Is this an easy decision for you, Greg?
It's Ohio State. Just offensive skill, the depth, the personnel, the different type of ways that they can attack you. The one thing Ohio State doesn't have is a difference maker at tight end. I mean, every single other player that takes the field for them offensively is a legitimate difference maker. So I don't know if you see it the same way, but I'm not sure how Oregon stacks up. I think Oregon's got a solid tight end. And, I think they got two very solid backs. I think they got 2 or 3 rock solid wide receivers, but I feel like Ohio State just has more and a slightly higher ceiling at almost every position as well. So it's a tougher call than it was in the first round against Tennessee, but I still got to go with Ohio State.
Yeah, Tez Johnson has had a great year. I think Evan Stewart, we know how dangerous he can be. Trayshawn Holden has been solid for Oregon. And, of course, Jordan James running the football has been great. It's just you have a 1-2 counterpunch with two elite number one running backs at Ohio State. The wide receiver still probably a lean to Ohio State, which is the overall skill level, and maybe size is where Ohio State's different than Oregon is from the receiver perspective. So I'm with you. It's Ohio State, not a very difficult decision for me. And that'll put Texas against Ohio State. We'll debate that one in just a moment. But next will be, and we mentioned it, and this is why this one's interesting, overall offensive skill, Penn State and Boise. I gave the lean to Penn State because they had what I thought to be one of the few takeover guys in this tournament. Well, Boise's got one of the other ones. I don't know if their skill is as good top to bottom. Their depth definitely not. Is this an easy selection of Penn State for you, Greg?
No, not really. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, like I don't feel great about Penn State's personnel at the skill positions beyond Tyler Warren. You've already talked about it. They got a takeover guy. I get that. I, however, look at what Boise has this year, and I think in most years you would look at Boise and think to yourself, okay, hang on a second. I can kind of get on board with, with what Boise's been. I kind of like Boise's personnel here, or, they have two receivers that are super underrated. I'm not as convinced that's the case this year. I don't know how you feel about their personnel from a receiving standpoint. Like Gaines is solid as a number 2 back, but he's hardly ever involved. Like Cooper, I guess Cam Cooper, number 9, would technically be one of their top guys. And I think he's a good piece, but I don't think he's amazing. I think he's solid, very, very solid. But man alive, it's hard to look past anyone not named Ashton Genty and think, all right, yeah, he's my guy. But I guess Cam Camper would be the next one. That'd be the one.
No, he would be a bigger downfield receiver that can hurt you multiple ways. I like the tight end. I think it's Matt Lauder. I just think he's solid all the way around. Like doesn't have a lot of true weaknesses in his game. Now he's not obviously what Tyler Warren is. But this is an easy one for me. It's Penn State, mainly because of the depth at running back, depth at tight end, and maybe a slight edge at wide receiver. Either way, I think it would still be Penn State. So then we go to Indiana and Georgia. Just offensive skill we're talking about here. And we already mentioned availability with some teams. That's going to be a big issue with Georgia as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia's one of the toughest teams to figure out because I think their skill on an individual basis is excellent. ETN, excellent. When he's at 100%, right? Like I'm a big fan of his when he's at 100%. But the other skill, I mean, who do you feel great about? Because I think Cash Jones is a good player. I think the 3 tight ends are all rock solid. But I don't feel like Dominic Lovett or Dylan Bell or Arian Smith are
especially
are
coming off the
guys.
SEC championship game. I mean,
I don't feel good about those guys. Like I really don't. So it's a little bit tougher for me to feel great about their weapons. So man alive, it's a lot more difficult decision than I think one would assume when looking at it and the star rankings that these guys had coming out of high school.
Yeah, and I think, too, what you get caught up with Georgia, Greg, is what could have been or what could be. And you say, okay, London Humphreys, like we both love him. They don't use him. Dylan Bell, when given opportunities, and he feels more like a must-have guy, like when they have to have something, they're going to get him involved somehow because he's probably the most reliable that they have, but he's not by far not the most dynamic. If you're basing Arian Smith off the SEC championship game, man, like it's a no. It's just too many drops. I mean, you can't allow it.
That's always the case with him.
100%.
It's like unbelievable.
And it hasn't changed. And then I think if ATN's healthy, like we've seen him back, like he could be really good. Nate Fraser's solid, but holding on to the football, you have to ask the question because he's put it on the mat a bunch this year. So I think if you're talking potential, it's easily Georgia. but there have been some letdown moments with a lot of those guys. I'm still going to squeak Georgia through just because I know what Dylan Bell can be. I don't know the situation with Colby Young, but some people say that there's a chance he'll be back. We'll see. I know what London Humphreys can be if they actually throw him the ball. I've seen Dylan Bell almost take over a game, playing running back, playing receiver, handing in the ball, jet sweeps, quick throws. So I am going a little bit on potential in what maybe not what could have been, but what has been in certain instances. Not always. Consistency definitely not there, but I'm still going to be a slight Georgia lean here.
Yeah, not me. It's Indiana. And I think part of it is the downside of Georgia.
Yeah.
Like, I know the floor I'm getting from Indiana. I know it. Like, it's not, they're not going to drop it very often. They're going to be able to have some guys that are possession. They have guys that'll go over the middle. They have a passing attack that is, when it's operating on full tilt, is a lot of fun to watch. Very, very consistent, very rhythmic. I mean, it's a clean operation. Georgia is everything but clean. And I do think the tight ends make it a little bit more compelling because I like the tight ends a lot. Like, I like Lawson Lucky. I think Urasek, there's more there for him if they wanted to start giving him a little bit more run. So I think the tight ends, Delp is solid. Like, I think those guys are solid in the passing attack, but they're not spectacular. So to me, it's Indiana. By actually a somewhat decent margin. I don't want to hear about this upside. Well, if they did this, they'd be great. It's been 13 games. Like, this catch and run stuff, it's great. I'm not saying it doesn't have a place for it, but if you want well-rounded skill positions, like, Indiana's got more reliable weapons. And the best ability is availability. The second best ability is reliability. And right now, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of guys on Georgia's team that I 100% trust with my life on the line that they can make a play for me when they got to have a situation.
All right, we'll finish this up on the other side. John, Georgia, Indiana, you have to split it here because Greg and I, that's the only one we disagree on, by the way, through this entire tournament so far. We've got Texas, Ohio State coming up, and we've got Penn State versus either Georgia or Indiana.
It's hard to not take Georgia. I understand why.
You guys are too
Indiana
enamored with the star rankings.
That's it. That's what I base all my evaluations on.
That's what it is.
It's the only thing that I evaluate guys on. I don't even watch tape anymore. It's just, give me the PFF grade. How many stars did he have?
Georgia played Auburn. That's all I care about.
That's it. That's the only one. All right, so Georgia will move on. Greg will have to live with that one. We will come back for the Final Four and finish this thing off next on Mac and Cube in the morning. 8:54 a.m. Wednesday, December 18th, Jocks 94.5. Let's wrap this up quickly because Texas-Ohio State's probably going to be a bit of a chore, Greg, when deciding which offensive skill would advance to the next round.
Big time. I'm going Ohio State. I think it's close. I think Texas is good. I think Ohio State's depth at running back gives them the edge. Now, Gunnar Helm almost kind of skews things in Texas's favor. I think the receivers are a bit of a toss-up, but Wisner's great. I think he's excellent, but the depth is not there. However, with Ohio State, I absolutely have it with Henderson and Judkins. So I would go Ohio State there, but I do think it's a little bit closer than I probably would have thought before we started this exercise.
Is it Ohio State on just receivers or is it Texas?
I think if we're going just receivers, the high side is Ohio State. The depth is on Texas.
Yeah, I think I would still go Texas with receivers, and I may go Texas overall. Like you said, I like Jake Majors. Even though G. Scott's been great when he's played. Gunnar Helm, not Jake Majors.
I was going to say, Jake Majors, he's catching passes now? You're trying to get the center involved?
He has a lot of skill. He snaps the football. Did you see him snap it through Arch Manning's legs?
I did, yes.
Right. So let's not question his skill. Let's not question his skill. All right, so we will be split on that one. John, you want to decide it? Ohio State, Texas?
I'm going Ohio State.
Okay, so Ohio State advances. We've got Penn State, Georgia, Greg.
I would go Georgia.
All right, so if it was yours, it was Penn State, Indiana, who would go through?
Indiana.
All right, so let's go championship game. Ohio State, Georgia, offensive skill. It's Ohio State, right?
Yes.
And if it went your way, Ohio State, Indiana, it's Ohio State, right?
Yes.
So our national champion of offensive skill in this year's college football playoff will be the Ohio State offensive skill. There it is. They are your national champions. We'll pick another facet of this playoff and run it back and do it again next right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Hour number 3 underway. We will take a different twist on this college football playoff in just a moment. Our 2024 college football playoff champion based solely on physicality, Tennessee. Our 2024 college football playoff champion based solely on offensive skill, Ohio State. Which direction do we want to go next, Greg? Defense, takeover guys, best player overall each game?
Punters?
No.
Okay, well.
Ooh, punters feels right for Cole.
I mean, they're all in the portal, so they're important.
I think
somewhere.
if MMA fight, you get to pick one player from each team in an MMA fight in the octagon.
And that decides whether or not they win?
Yes. It's like the opening scene from the movie Troy, where they pull out Pythagoras and then he has to fight Achilles and Achilles handles him early. Spoiler alert. I know John's seen that movie. You might not have, Cole.
It's been a while, though. I
100%.
don't know if I remember it.
Movie rips. But anyways, yeah, that's what we go for. You just have 1v1. Take the biggest killer on the block and see if they can handle the heat.
I just don't know if I know their personalities well enough. Like Clemson and Oregon. If you like Georgia, Tennessee, I could probably give you. Maybe Notre Dame. Texas, I could give you, but there's a couple of those I don't know because I don't know their personalities all that well.
No, I'm kidding. I don't think we could actually. I don't know those personalities.
Entertaining.
I mean, it could be
easily be a backup in some situations too.
It's definitely going to be a backup in some situations, but that's because we just don't know who those guys are.
Yep. I don't know. I don't know how to gauge that one. I do think that quarterbacks is always interesting, but it's a little bit chalky. Like everyone kind of knows the quarterback.
Yeah, but I think some of the matchups could be pretty good. So let's run through quarterbacks. I don't think it'll take that long, to be honest with you, if that's the way we wanted to do it.
All right.
Quickly, I did want to get to some breaking news. Wake Forest is going to hire Washington State's Jake Dickert as their next head football coach. Some other coaching news. South Florida, get ready for this one, has hired Cody Burns, former Auburn player, has coached a couple places in the SEC, Auburn, Tennessee, a coach in the NFL, as their co-offensive coordinator, their assistant head coach, and as their wide receiver coach.
Ooh, that's feels like a lot.
He has to wear a lot of hats in that situation.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say, Alex Golish, you get it. I like it. We can talk about how busy these guys are all the time. Just give all the other guys a responsibility. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I need you as my receiver coach, but you're also going to be the co-offensive coordinator, and you're going to be the assistant head coach, which means you handle half the recruiting. So good luck.
Actually, no, he doesn't. Recruiting analyst isn't in his. He didn't get one of those jobs, so.
You do half the speaking engagements. Welcome in. You draw up half the game plan,
get paid
half the speaking engagements, and all the receiver responsibilities.
Coach in the second and third quarters.
There you go.
Head coach.
There it is.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know.
it.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I kind of feel. I don't know. I just feel very strange about some of the amount of responsibility that some of these guys have. Like it's kind of crazy. Like, how do you do all those things and do them well? You know what I mean?
Well, you can say the same thing about every head coach, though.
It's accurate. It just feels like it'd be hard. It'd be hard to do a good job if you had to do 15 different things. Like you and I know this, like in our world, the more television, the more radio you do, the more thinly you get stretched, the more challenging it becomes to dive really, really deep in the weeds. Doesn't mean you can't, just means it becomes more challenging. And when it's a real performance-based industry, a la calling plays, coaching, recruiting, relationship building, etc., it does feel like it'd be an awful lot to ask of a guy to wear all those hats, but it is what it is. And at some places, they don't have the resources to staff their, I would say, staff their coaching staff appropriately with guys that can handle all those subsets, right?
No, I don't think there's any doubt.
Either way, I do want to get back to the Jake Dickert thing. Has there been a program in the last 3 years that has come under more challenging times than Washington State? Starting with Rolovich, who was let go because he wouldn't, go through, and I don't even remember what the details were. It was something about the vaccination. I don't remember. I really
he
don't.
wasn't going to take it.
But was it that, or he had failed to provide a vaccination card? I don't remember what it was. All I know is he was let go. Dickert replaced him because Rolovich basically was fired, but I think it was with cause. Anyways, doesn't matter. So Rolovich gets fired. Dickert takes it. Then their quarterback, Cam Ward, decides to leave. They go to Mateer. Mateer decides to leave. Their Arbuckle, their offensive coordinator, decides to leave. Now their head coach is left. Has there been a program that's had more challenging 5 years than Washington State?
Not many, no. With especially everything that happened from a conference perspective, and it's been
Pac-12. Yeah, forget about that.
It's just a minor deal where they're left searching for a conference. Didn't know if they were going to be able to keep their old conference alive. Half their conference leaves them. Yeah, just a couple of challenges in front of them. And Nick Rolovich, by the way, just hired at Cal. If you're wondering how things work in some places, the San Francisco Chronicle reads, Cal adds anti-vaxxer Nick Rolovich to Justin Wilcox staff. That's literally a headline. The Seattle Times reads, ex-WSU coach Nick Rolovich fired after refusing COVID vaccine, hired by Cal.
So that's what it was.
The Mercury News.
And Brian Harsin there as well.
Well, the Mercury News reads, Cal hires Brian Harsin, Nick Rolovich, parentheses, remember their COVID vaccine controversies to spark the offense.
I mean, they can't say they got Mercury in their name.
Yikes.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
It really is. But nonetheless, moving on back on.
Can he call plays? Are we still
yes?
I mean,
so a couple of other coaching moves we haven't gotten to yet. I mentioned that Sacramento State's going to hire UNLV offensive coordinator Brendan Marion as their head coach. Norfolk State's going to hire Mike Vick as their head coach. They were 4-8 last year, just one winning season since 2011. That was the last time they went to the FCS playoffs. Ohio is targeting Tyler Tettleton to be their next head coach. Don't know if you guys remember.
Mickey Tettleton's son?
It is. He played quarterback there at Ohio. He's actually pretty good in college.
Let's go.
He is currently the Jags, wait for this one, assistant running back coach.
Why does the running back, the easiest position from a standpoint of details, you need two coaches?
Apparently.
Back in my day, they used to say, just give me the ball and let me do work. Herschel Walker and Bo didn't need no running back coaches. Just make guys miss and score.
This is your Jags roster at the running back position. Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, Dearness Johnson, and Keelan Robinson. They got two coaches for four guys.
Okay.
Hey, Tank Keelan, room A. Travis Dearness, room B. We're splitting up today.
Yep.
Each of you gets half our time.
Do you think one of them goes
Coach,
in?
This week, let's mix it up. I'm going to handle 3rd and 4th downs. You handle 1st and 2nd.
Mm.
Do you think they do the Rick Trickett whiteboard coaching? Do you think that's what it is?
I guess. I don't know. But I didn't know there were assistant running back coaches. But there you go. It's the NFL, man. It's a different deal. So
how do we feel about Michael Vick taking the I guess he's Mike Vick now. He was always Michael to me. I don't know why Michael Vick just rolls off the tongue. But how do we feel about Mike Vick taking the head job at Norfolk State? Yet another former player going into the coaching ranks in an effort to become the next Deion Sanders, it seems like.
Well, let's go through it. Eddie George, just named coach of the year. He's got the Tigers in the playoffs this year, Tennessee State. Eddie Robinson, I feel like he's been pretty good at Alabama State. Deion was pretty good at Jackson State. We would agree there.
Yes. I know it's high school, but Teddy Bridgewater took his alma mater.
Well, he's going back to the NFL, actually.
Yeah, but at least in high school, what he did. Yeah, he brought him to a state championship, and I think they only had like 4 points scored on him.
And now is going to go play in the NFL again, apparently.
He's going to play in the NFL?
That's what he said yesterday. He said he's got some suitors, and he might be back in the NFL before the end of the season.
Teddy Two Gloves?
Yep. Tyrone Wheatley was at Morgan State. Sean Gilbert was at Livingstone. Greg Ellis started his coaching career at Texas College. Obviously, Harbaugh, Dilfer, Frost, Deshaun Foster. Mostly it has gone well. But I think at the lower levels of college football, Greg, it's gone a little bit better. And I think it's a great idea because we're talking about Norfolk State right now. And Mike Vick spent some time coaching with Andy Reid on his chief staff. He doesn't necessarily have the background that you would want, but you've had one winning season since 2011. I don't feel like there's a ton to lose here. He grew up in Newport News, so obviously knows the area. Geographically, he'll be able to walk around and get a lot of attention and get a lot of people's ear. So I think it's a great move, honestly, because I don't know.
No risk.
That's why I think it's a great move. Go for it. Have at it.
I mean, even if he fails, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the whole thing. I just find it interesting that all these players have now just decided, yep, I think I'd like to go into coaching. Is it because of Deion? And because Deion's making $5 million a year? What do you think was the genesis of these players just deciding, yep, I'm going to go become a head coach now and dive back into the deep end of the pool?
I think a lot of guys just want to be around the game. And similar to the story that you told us about your broadcasting career, I think some of these guys are looking for ways. Like I had a lot of these conversations with Hines Ward and Anthony Beck in the UFL and the XFL. And they just want to be close to football and they want to be involved in football. And when you offer your time to go and either study under or like I know Roman Harper has done this with the Saints. Like he goes in the off season, like in camp, and he acts as like an assistant coach. He's probably like an analyst, basically, is what we would call it at the college level. And a lot of guys have the ability to go do that with these NFL franchises, and I think a lot of them just catch the bug. They're like, man, I get to watch film every day. I get to teach this guy how to throw, like how to use his feet. I get to go be in games and come up with a game plan. Like it's just, I think it's adrenaline, you know. It gives you those endorphins back of what it was like playing a little bit. And so I think guys want to be involved. And from the school's perspective, you look at it as he's a literal local hero, probably well past that, but geographically where you are, he is an icon and has spent time in the NFL, spent time nearby playing big time college football. And I think is going to be able to talk to kids in a different way about the type of player he was, how he got to where he was, even some of the mistakes that he made, being able to counsel them that way. I just think these guys want to be around the game. And there's only a couple ways to do it. Well, I mean, if you want to be involved in football, how many jobs are there out there? You're a broadcaster, talk about it, you coach, okay. Maybe you can be in the marketing department. Obviously, if you can do graphics, you can work with football. We know that because we need a lot of those this day and age. You'd be busy. Not only working, I mean, you might be working too much. These head coaches complain about their time. Graphics people at certain schools probably working more than the head coach. But there's only just only so many ways that you can be involved in it. And I talk to people all the time. They're like, man, I wish I could talk about football every day. I wish I could just watch football for my job. I get that all the time. And you and I talk all the time about how great it would be to coach if we didn't have to deal with all the other stuff. If someone came to us and said, hey, you get to coach our offensive line, and that's all you have to do. If they said, Greg, you're going to coach our quarterbacks and come up with our game plan, and that's it. Like, we would both probably be gone tomorrow if that was the way it could be laid out for us at the right place for the right price. But we don't want to go recruit, and we don't want to deal with the portal. We don't want to deal with NIL. Like, we hear all the horror stories from the coaches. We are sounding boards to a lot of these coaches to vent their frustrations. And so when we hear that week after week after week, it's not something that we probably have at the forefront of our minds of wanting to go do.
No, I have zero desire at the moment to go be involved in college coaching. Many people have asked. No, you can have it. That's why I find so interesting about it is it's really not a very appealing place to be right now. If we're going to be honest, dealing with agents and players that are really not all in, and players that you have a difficult time coaching in general, because the second you coach hard, they go in the portal and you try to make them better, but they think that you're supposed to be their friend. And It's not really the way it works and all this other stuff. Like, I just feel like now more than ever, it'd be a really unattractive place to be. But because Dion, I think, has now made it possible for success, I think Dion should get credited for all of this, by the way. Like 100%, this has everything to do with Deion Sanders and the needle moving job that was Jackson State, and him taking that and it making HBCUs a bit of a destiny. HBCUs has long been an afterthought. They were not well resourced. You know, they didn't really move. They didn't have the platforms on ESPN with regularity whatsoever. Yes, there were some games that were highlighted, but now I think with the advent of streaming services, there's more access to the game. There's more ways to watch. It's easier to consume. Dion has been able to use that launch board to Colorado and now is making big money and probably going to have other opportunities in the future. So I think there's a lot of reasons why people are kind of moving in this direction. And I get it. It's just ironic timing to me more than ever before because of how miserable, and these are people that are in it, how miserable college coaching has become.
A lot of it is. And a lot of us, I do feel like that just don't want to deal with the headaches that are out there. So, all right, we'll get to a different aspect of this college football playoff on the other side. First, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Bromberg's been serving this community for a really long time, nearly 200 years. They've been in this community. Very grateful to the experiences that I've had every time I walk in the door. Have good friends that work there. Go in and feel like I'm shopping amongst family. Really appreciate that my wife has put some things on her wish list at Bromberg's. So they have documented proof of things that she's picked out in the past. So every time there's a holiday coming up, hey, I walk in. Hey, what do you guys think? Hey, well, your wife actually really likes this. Why don't you take a look? It's really helpful for us, and I know that it'll work for you as well. So go and check them out in one of their 2 locations in Mountain Brook Village or the Summit. You can also shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, when we come back, more college football playoff, and we will take a different twist on it to come up with another national champion next on Mac and Cube in the morning. 9:21 right here on Jocks 94.5. Some hoops from last night quickly. We mentioned a little bit earlier in the show that Janai Broome injured early in that game last night for the Auburn Tigers. Hoping for a speedy recovery. He can be back in the lineup quickly, but Auburn still handles Georgia State 100-59, 10-1 or better for the fourth time under Bruce Pearl. The most such seasons by any coach in program history. Chaney Johnson, 26 points last night, career high at the Division I level for him. His 85.7% field goal percentage, third highest by a 25-point scorer by an Auburn player over the last 25 seasons. Second game this season with over 100 points for Auburn. This may be one that should be saved for the last segment of the day, but I'm going to go ahead and knock it out now. Tennessee just snuck past Western Carolina 84-36 last night. 36 points in a men's college basketball game for Western Carolina. Fourth 11-0 start in program history for the Vols. One of 5 remaining undefeated teams in Division I. Can you name any of the others?
No.
I appreciate the honesty, John. Honestly, I do.
I've watched some basketball, but I haven't paid attention to the record. So
you got Florida, Oklahoma, Drake, and
Tennessee.
Yes, one of the five that we just mentioned.
Got him.
So those will be actually they played last night. Drake and Utah State played last night, and I didn't see that final. So that would be.
You weren't watching that?
You know what?
On the Ocho, it was great.
Was it? Where do I get the Ocho? Tubo?
Big East Ocho.
Tubo?
No, that's
Big East Ocho plus.
Tubi is where you get Dion's talk show.
Oh. Drake won that game, so they're 10-0. So there you go. All right. So
you think will Drake become a Drake fan?
No.
Will they win anything?
Yeah. If they get
keep
to the
winning.
Final Four, he will.
Yeah.
Tennessee has held multiple opponents under 40 points in a single season for the first time since 1947, 1948. UT Martin had 35 against the Vols earlier this season. Western Carolina, 0-51 all-time versus AP-ranked teams.
That ain't good.
So, yeah. Greg, also, Pete Nakos and Steve Wiltfong, who we both had on the show, they are logging predictions now for Auburn to land Georgia Tech transfer wide receiver Eric Singleton.
That's a great pickup.
If that happens, that would be a massive one. We thought he had committed to Ole Miss 2 days ago. 24/7 had him as 100% to Ole Miss, which I mean, I feel like you're saying that he's committed. 100%, 100%.
Yeah. Whoops.
So, yes, there's no greater percentage, regardless of what kind of effort people think you can give. There is no
but who's that
percentage.
coming from? It looks like an Ole Miss insider.
Maybe.
Oh, so Cole did it. Oh, okay.
It's a really
Definitely.
good pickup for Auburn, if so. Seriously, like an excellent pickup. He's really a great deep threat, but he's great with the ball in his hands. Really versatile piece, can do a lot of things for you. I do wonder a little bit about, because I think Rutherford handled a lot of the jet sweep stuff, a lot of the catch and run stuff, and that took away a little bit from Singleton. I think he can do those things. He just wasn't asked to.
No, I definitely think
as
he can.
much as Rutherford. Rutherford was more the slot guy. Like, I think Singleton has that capability. He just kind of lived on the outside. So I really like Singleton. I think he's super explosive and he's great down the field, but I think there's more in his game than we even realized based on how he finished at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, had 21 carries for 131 yards on the season, but I agree with you. I think if he's given opportunities to do some of those things, that he could be successful doing that. All right, do we want to go quarterbacks here for the college football playoff? If it was just based on that, who wins?
Yeah.
All right, we will start with Clemson and Texas. And I guess we should also take quarterback depth into consideration here somewhat. That's a part of this.
No, don't you do it.
I do think that has to be at least a portion of how we're discussing this.
Well, Arch Manning is the best quarterback in the history of football.
Not yet.
So he's then Texas. Give him the natty.
I will take Texas. Klubnik's gotten a lot better this year, and people don't really give him enough credit for that. But with what we've seen Arch do, with what Quinn Ewers is capable of doing, I will take Texas to move on.
If depth is a factor, for sure. If you want to give me exclusively starters, I'm probably taking Klubnik over Ewers right now.
Wow.
And I just think Klubnik's playing really well. And I know that people have this, assessment of who he is, but guys are capable of getting better over the course of their career. That does happen. It's rare, but it does happen. Oftentimes you're better as a junior than you are as a freshman. And the Klubnik accelerated development reminds me of Bo Nix. I think he plays a lot like Bo Nix. He's a little bit spastic, a little bit high energy, a little bit bouncing off the walls, not always under control, and it's a little uncomfortable to watch from time to time. But now that he's starting to get more confident, is throwing it down the field with a lot of regularity, he's been great there. I really like Klubnik. So if it's exclusively starters, then I'd probably take Klubnik over Ewers. But if it goes a touch deeper than that, I'd probably go with Texas as a whole.
Christopher Vazina, not enough to move the meter for you there from the depth perspective?
That's your guy. I don't know.
Cade Klubnik, 64% completed, 3,303 yards, 33 touchdowns, 5 picks. He has been much better than people give him credit for. I do think we have to take the entire room into consideration because especially when you look down some of these other teams, it's going to have to be discussed. I'll move Texas on. John, you must split it again. But are you saying Texas if we do the whole room, Greg? So we're on board?
Yeah, if you do the whole room, you have to take Texas.
All right, so Texas will face Arizona State. We'll get to that one in just a moment. Now's when we begin to make people mad. Tennessee and Ohio State. Just quarterbacks, Greg.
Will Howard.
Which direction are you going?
Will Howard. Ohio
I know
State.
Devin Brown hit the portal, but is he playing? Do we know?
Julian Sand, dude. No, Aaron Nolan, dude. No, I don't know.
He hit the portal too, by the way. So
I've seen the backup at Tennessee. It ain't good.
No.
So what I would say is that while I think people are very enamored with Nico Iamaleava, I think he's got a high ceiling. I don't disagree with that. I think he's a good runner. He's purely a game manager at this point. He really is. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. He just can't make mistakes. He's got to hit 1 or 2 throws a game. His QBR, his total QBR is less than a point higher than Joe Milton's was last year. Less than a point higher. He's at 70.5. Joe Milton was at 69.7. So just to keep things in perspective about where he is in his development, doesn't mean he won't have a bright future. It just means right now with where he's at, he's not yet at a point where he can carry the team. So maybe he's gotten better over bowl practice. I hope he has, but Will Howard is the answer here. And I think it's probably because I think partly Will Howard's super underrated. The Michigan game was bad, and there are some really low points, but there's also some really, really high points with Will Howard that would have him, in a position to be in a really good spot here.
Will Howard, more rushing touchdowns, more passing touchdowns, 3 more interceptions, some more passing yards than Nico Iamaleava. His completion percentage, Nico's, it would be about 2% higher, and he would have more rushing yards. I'm going to go with you right now and just say Ohio State because I haven't seen – I think if we're talking ceiling over time, it's Nico Iamaleava. Right now, it's Will Howard based on what they're both doing for their teams at this moment. SMU Penn State, another one interesting, I think, for different reasons. Gregory, but which direction would you go here?
This one's really interesting because I really like what Kevin Jennings is. I just think Kevin Jennings is going to get himself into some trouble. I watch him a lot. He does not move up in the pocket. He moves back in the pocket too much. He oftentimes escapes too often horizontally. With Kevin Jennings, it's never pretty. But it, for whatever reason, always seemingly works. How much time have you watched Kevin Jennings?
I've watched a couple games.
How many times have you seen him throw it from 13 yards deep in the pocket? It's like
he'll drift.
Dude, if I were a tackle, I'd be just beside myself sometimes with where he sometimes launches from. But man, I don't know. I think this is a toss-up. I probably lean slightly towards Aller, but it's not by much. Partly because I think Kevin Jennings, when the pass rush gets really good, he's going to have to be a lot better in the pocket than he's been so far. But man, it's hard to ignore the playmaking. It's not pretty. His mechanics are unorthodox. His move in the pocket doesn't make sense sometimes. Sometimes he does things you shouldn't do, but God, he makes plays. You know what I mean? He's just a gamer and he makes plays. So it's hard to disregard that, but I probably lean slightly towards Aller on a stage like this.
I'm going to go with you because I just think what he means to his team, what he's asked to do. He's gotten that completion percentage up to 69 this year. You need him to be a bigger back run, power back sort of. Drew Aller can do that. He doesn't have the playmaking ability that Kevin Jennings does. He's not asked to get on the edge and do things that he has options to keep the ball, run the ball at different points in time. But what he is asked to do, I think he's pretty good at. And I think he's a little bit more reliable right now. So I'm with you. We will bump Penn State through, and they'll face Boise. We'll get to that game in just a moment. Indiana, Notre Dame. Just quarterback, Greg. Which direction are you going?
It's Indiana, and it's crazy. And I love what Riley Leonard's provided with his legs. I think he's a really good runner. I think he's gotten better as a thrower. The underneath stuff's pretty good. I don't dislike how he's improved a little bit down the field, too. I think he's really smart. He sees pressure and knows how to get it done. I'm telling you, though, if you protect for Curtis Rourke, he will kill you. We're going to fast forward 10 years from now, and Curtis Rourke's going to be starting in the NFL. And he's going to be a guy that's like, where did he come from? A la Kirk Cousins. I think the comp with Kirk Cousins is really similar. And he just kills you with efficiency. And the accuracy's 10 plus, throws a super catchable ball. I think Curtis Rourke's maybe the most underrated player in the field of the college football playoff, especially amongst the quarterbacks. So I think he's big time. Now, got to get protection, which is not always a guarantee, but he's big time. He can carve you up. And there's a lot of things to like about his skill set.
Riley Leonard, one of three players on Notre Dame's team, averaging over 7 yards a carry when you remove the sacks from that. 721 rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns. But as you stated, Curtis Rourke he becomes that dual threat with how he operates the offense. Doesn't necessarily have to do it with his legs. He has 2 rushing touchdowns, but he's not really going to hurt you that way. But being able to manipulate the RPO system is how he becomes effective in multiple facets. So I'm with you. I just think Curtis Rourke's too dangerous with how he can pick you apart and the things that he can do, how he forces your defense to be wrong. I would go that direction. It is close, though, because Riley Leonard can pound you, can hurt you with his legs. 14 rushing touchdowns this year. This was a lot more difficult, I think, than I originally thought it would be when I just sort of looked down the list. But we're going to bump Indiana through, and we'll continue that practice. On the other side, our matchups: Texas, Arizona State, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Boise, Indiana, Georgia. Just based on quarterbacks, who is going to move on? Before we do that, tell our listeners about B-Dry.
B-Dry has been serving Alabama and customers in this community for 60 years. You'll be taken care of by B-Dry. They're the pros, the largest waterproofing company in the country, and the only company that has a solution that stops all 5 ways water enters your foundation. Go and check them out today. You'll be glad you did. BDryAlabama.com. They also are going to give you 12 months interest-free and no payments. That's right, no payments for 12 months, so you get the job done and still have some cash on hand for some holiday funds. So call them today, 942-1976, or visit BDryAlabama.com.
I'm getting people seeing on social media, they're reporting that this Netflix show is coming in the summer of 25.
Which one is that?
The one that followed SEC teams this past season. We didn't know about that? John, did we
I
not
knew
know
about it.
I knew they were doing it, but I didn't know when it was coming. But I assumed it was coming out before. Yeah.
I mean, I had like 4 games where those guys were there.
Yeah.
And it was a lot. So, yeah, I just thought that publicly we knew that was happening. We were going to do that. Maybe just the release date is now new.
I guess I didn't know it was the F1 guys for Netflix, like Pathway to Victor or whatever. I didn't know it was
going to be cool.
But I knew it was Netflix. But yeah.
It's going to be cool.
Yeah.
I'd just be curious, like, what all makes it through. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's.
I know specifically at 2 of the games I was at, there were some things that certain folks were hoping does not get through.
Yes. And there's
spoke to me about it, like
approval.
Specifically said, I'm just hoping those guys weren't in there for that.
Yes.
So, but it'll be entertaining. It's going to be cool to see behind the scenes, some of the coaches, players talking, just different things happening. It's going to be fun to watch. That's the one that I think we'll all dive into and be a part of. All right, we'll talk quarterbacks when we come back in this college football playoff next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, 9:39 a.m. Wednesday, December 18th. Jocks 94.5. Thanks for tuning in. Finishing up our college football playoff bracket based only on quarterbacks. Texas, Arizona State is up next, Greg. That feels like a pretty easy one. Before we move into the bracket, tell our listeners if they're moving out of their homes who they need to call.
Be Crocker Moving Services. They're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys. You can trust them in your home, whether it's your whole home packed up and move, your company headquarters moved across the country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room. These guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you purchased and need to get into your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website's crockermovingservices.com. That's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
A couple other things quickly before we finish up our quarterback discussion. Missouri took out Jacksonville State men's hoops last night, 83-72. Troy knocked off LaGrange 105-60. Alabama gets a commitment from Florida edge defender Kelby Collins. He was the number 7 defensive line in the 23 class, played a little bit last year, 6'4", 278. It's a good get from a talent perspective for Alabama. Former defensive lineman Damon.
Is he pretty
Payne.
good? I watched some Florida this year. I don't remember him at all. I'm not saying he's not good. I just don't remember.
Yeah, he just didn't play a ton. I think he's got some juice. I think he
They're
can
playing
play.
him inside though. Well, the only times I saw him was inside.
Yeah, he can. But I'm saying he can go. I think I'm confused at him being listed as an edge. Also, I think he'd have to lean up a lot. But also, we saw what LT Overton did this year as like a little bit of a beefier edge guy. I think he might be a good fit in that system. Jaylen Mbway is going to stay. We mentioned that earlier. And Damon Payne, former defensive line, has committed to Michigan. Auburn's Amaris Williams is now staying at Auburn. That might be my biggest question of all this, is that these guys that publicly announce they're leaving and then come back, how that goes over.
In the locker room?
Yeah, or the weight room or the practice field or around town.
Probably the same way it does with a holdout. Like when you end a holdout.
My brain doesn't operate in the same fashion as today's college players do, but that wouldn't be cool for me.
Yeah, we would probably have a tough time being friends again if that happened. Full disclosure, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just where I also don't really blame him. Like, go get the bag, bro. Like, I get it. I understand the culture right now, but you can have it.
All right, Texas, Arizona State. This is an easy one, right? Sam Levitt's not going to move through. I mean, he's solid.
Sam Levitt's really, really good.
Does a lot.
But he's not moving over Texas. He's really good, though. I think that dude is really underrated. He's crafty. He's got good athleticism. He's got some gumption. Like, dude's got some moxie. So he's a guy I'd take on my team every day of the week.
Yeah.
But I can't move him past Texas.
He's just a winner when you watch him play.
He's a baller.
5 rushing touchdowns, 24 touchdowns passing, just 5 interceptions. He's a good player, but not over Texas. Ohio State, Oregon. Is this just Oregon? End of conversation?
Yeah. It's just the floor for Oregon is just higher than that of what we'd get with Will Howard and Ohio State. Doesn't mean that Will Howard can't somehow put some of the turnovers and the bad plays behind him. Could that happen? Sure. And I could, go back to the NFL and start for the Browns. Like, come on.
Man.
Like, these things are unlikely. So no, I don't think it's likely at this point. I think when you look at where the world's gone and how Will Howard's kind of continued to be the same guy, I do think his high points are still really, really high.
Yeah.
His best football is better than Dylan Gabriel's best football, but his low points are just too low. I just can't get over it.
Yep. All right, so Oregon moves on. Penn State and Boise. Maddox Madsen's done some good things for this team. He leans heavily on play action. I think we all know that. 62%, 2,714 yards, 22 touchdowns, just 3 picks. He's protected the football. He's rushed for 5 touchdowns. He's tough, but he's also got Ashton Genty, and that makes things different. For me, it's Penn State here, Greg.
Yes, I think it's Penn State. I'm not sure it's close.
Now becomes a very interesting matchup. Based on what we know now, which technically could be different than Indiana, Georgia, who moves on?
Indiana. Assuming who the starting quarterback is. And honestly, like Carson Beck, I don't think it's a slam dunk. It'd be one direction or the other. Like, I think Rourke's that good. I know people will look at, oh, he's a MAC player. He doesn't, he's from Canada, all this other stuff.
No,
Like,
we're
I'm
not doing
telling
draft
you-
prospectus, though. We're doing this tournament, these games, which is different.
Yes.
So, yeah, it makes
Exactly.
the conversation a little bit different. So, Indiana moves on.
And I don't care about the draft because I think Rourke's going to be a good pro. I
Right.
really do. Like, I think he's going to be a really good pro. And
Right.
I think he's going to get drafted in the 4th round. He's going to be in the league for 12 years. Like, that's what I anticipate.
Texas, Oregon. Which direction are you going?
In college, it's hard not to pick Oregon here. I think Gabriel's still really, really good. So I'm going to go Oregon, but I don't feel super confident in it. I do think that Arch's legs and mobility make it a little bit more difficult to defend Texas, but I'm going Oregon. I just think Gabriel's willingness to take off a little bit from time to time, keep you honest with the run game, quarterback scramble. I just think his maturity and how many games he's played gives him a little bit of an edge.
I would be with you there. And just Dylan Gabriel's been fantastic this year, so it's got to be Oregon moving on for me. Penn State, Indiana. It's Indiana again, isn't it?
Correct.
Oregon, Indiana.
Oregon.
It's Oregon for me. John? Oregon, Indiana? Is it
Between those
Oregon?
two, yeah,
It's easy.
Oregon.
All right, so our college football playoff national champion based solely on quarterback play will be the Oregon Ducks, which is where a lot of people will say, not Nick Saban, but a lot of people would say this is where this playoff will be won, strictly based on quarterback play. But
Disagree.
other things will be involved, obviously. All right, we will come back, give you a couple bad box scores of the day. First, I'll tell you about Gusty Goulis and the Gusty Goulis Group. If you guys are looking for a new home in Birmingham, Alabama, you need to call 205-542-1996. Visit GustyGoulisGroup.com. See a button at the top of your page. Smash that. Very little information. Find out how much your home is worth. Brokered by eXp Realty. Over 835-star Google reviews. Served over 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area. Gusty Goulis Group is who you need to call to get out of your home, get top value, and get into a new home for the best deal possible. 205-542-1996. Google Gusty Goulis Group or just go to GustyGoulisGroup.com today and start packing. Bad box score of the day right after this. All right, get to bad box score of the day now. In just a moment. First, I'll tell you about your CBD store. 9:49 a.m. Wednesday, December 18th, right here on Jocks 94.5. We'll get it out at some point, somehow. Your CBD store has products to help you live a better life, better sleep. They have products that can help you with that. Weight loss, trimmed by SunMed, in stock now at the largest brick and mortar CBD retailer in the world. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. Got the stamp seal on those products. Arthritis, anxiety for you or your pet, they want to help. They can help you each and every day. Skincare, gut health for you and your pet. Just go by your CBD store. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. Visit one of their 3 locations, Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cajun Cleaver, Trustful just off 459. Tell them you heard about them right here on McElroy and Kublick in the morning. Let's get to our bad box scores of the day.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
Intentional grounding, offense number 7. It's a 10-yard penalty. I'm talking to America here, excuse me.
That's the game.
All right, we will go to NCAA women's basketball, the NAIA version. The Abilene Christian
Tigers?
No.
I feel like I should know this. Bobcats.
Wildcats. They get to 8-4 as they just snuck past the Howard Payne.
Don't know this one.
It's another OG mascot. I'll give you a hint.
Oh, okay.
Eagles.
Cavemen.
Yellow Jackets.
Bulldogs.
108-35.
It's triple up.
Howard Payne shot the ball 42 times.
Okay, that's not a bad day.
They made 11.
That's a bad day.
They were 3 of 19 from 3. Now, of that 11 of 42, which would leave you with 31 misses, correct?
Yes.
They had 3 offensive rebounds. 1, 2, 3 offensive rebounds.
All right. Not 4.
On 31 misses.
Not 5, not 6, not 7.
3 total.
Okay, all right.
They limited the turnovers to 27.
That's okay. That's respectable.
What's the normal turnover rate for this level?
0?
No. I mean, I think probably 6 to 8 would be like your average.
Oh, not quite double digit.
Yeah. Your rebounding differential was a slight lean. Abilene Christian out-rebounded Howard Payne 57-19.
Oh, lean back like Fat Joe. Okay.
Abilene Christian shot 41 of 83 in the game, 12 of 33 from 3. That is one of your bad box scores of the day. Now, Greg, you should also know these two. We will take you to the Texas Wesleyan.
Clergymen.
Bulldogs.
Rams. They snuck past the Oklahoma Panhandle State.
Oilmen.
Great guess. No.
Let's say the Aggies.
Bingo.
Oh.
Boom.
Look at that.
They should panhandle for a little more gold because they lost 67-21.
Okay, then.
21 points in a collegiate basketball game. Oklahoma Panhandle State, you will not be surprised to know, went to 1-10 on the season.
That's about right.
They shot the ball 54 times.
All right, that's respectable.
Not when you make 7.
Ugh, that's disrespectable.
They shot 22 threes.
Okay, that's fairly good. Sounds like Steph Curry.
Not bad.
They just made 1, though.
That sounds like Steph Curry. All right.
Not great.
They were out-rebounded 51-34. Now, better than Howard Payne, they only turned it over 22 times in the game.
Moderate double digits. All right.
All right, finally, we'll take you to junior college basketball. The Brescia, Kentucky.
Colonels.
No.
Bobcats. Let's go back to that.
Bearcats. You have been just missed the Cats twice today.
Had a good day today.
They took on the Appalachian College.
Mountain Men.
I'm sorry, the Appalachian Bible College.
Oh. Clergymen.
Wrong.
Oh.
Let's say the Crusaders.
They're the Warriors.
Okay.
And based on me doing this to Appalachian Bible College, I'm going to need Pastor Brian to go ahead and forgive me on Sunday when we come into service because they lost 126-22.
Not great.
They lost by triple dig.
Stop the music. I'll tell you again. 126 was Brescia Bearcats. 22 was Appalachian Bible.
That, in fact, is triple dig.
Brescia shot 56 of 106 for the game. 7 of 30 for 3. Now,
not great.
To the other side of it, the Appalachian Bible College women shot 11 of 34.
Come on, ladies.
They did shoot 4 threes.
Okay, well.
They didn't make any.
Well.
They did shoot 3 free throws.
All right.
They made none.
We're about
Not a single 3 or free throw in the game. Now,
Not a single one.
I'm not sure I can even go with limited here, but they did have 52 turnovers in the game.
Okay.
Not great.
I'm going to say that one more time. They turned the ball over almost twice as much as they shot the ball. 34 shots from the floor, 52 turnovers. They had 2 ladies with 11 turnovers. I'm not saying their names. I'm not that bad of a human being.
That's nice, right? Yeah.
They had 1 player with 19 turnovers.
You sure they didn't transpose the points and turnovers? Like,
at what point do you just tell that individual, go ahead and run down the floor? Like, we don't need you until the ball is, and there's only going to be 34 of these, but hopefully it hits the rim and you help us try to get it back. Your rebounding differential, 47 to 18. Now, I did a little research on Appalachian Bible.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the tabs was meet the head coach. So I clicked it.
Okay.
And the first thing that it read was Stacy McKay is the Appalachian Bible School nurse.
Ah.
So she had to nurse him after this beat down?
That's all you could come up with?
Well, they need an antidote.
Yeah.
For
sounds like it.
Shooting and rebounding and turnovers. Actually, for turnovers, they need a vaccine.
It's okay. Can't go to California. Okay.
Maybe an antidepressant. Goodness gracious, 52 turnovers in 126 to 22. That is the baddest of bad box scores of the day. I don't know if I can beat that one.
That's all.